In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Praise be Allah, who created the heavens and the earth, and made the darkness and the light. Yet those who reject faith hold others as equal with their guardian, Lord.
The system inherent in the governance of heaven and earth is so perfect in its coordination and its unitary nature despite the magnitude of the task, that it proclaims aloud the fact that its creator and organizer can be none other than the one and only God. Witness how unimaginably great is this universe in its vastness, wisdom, and meaningfulness. The flawlessly regulated revolution of the earth and space around the bright sphere of the sun, and hence the coming into existence of light and darkness and day and night, are events beyond human comprehension. Now, why should there be any question of God, who has organized the universe to perfection, having any shortcoming which would necessitate his having a partner to give him assistance? The fact is that the wonderful system by which everything in the world is regulated is in itself proof that its Lord, God, is one and one alone, and the same system also demonstrates that God is so great that he does not need any assistant either in his creation or in his control of what he has created.
It has created you from clay and then decreed a stated term for you, and there is in his presence another determined term, yet you doubt within yourselves.
See Surah Al-An'am ayah 4 for the Tafsir.
And he is Allah in the heavens and on earth. He knoweth what ye hide and what ye reveal, and he knoweth the recompense which ye earn by your deeds.
See Surah Al-An'am ayah 4 for the Tafsir.
But never did a single one of the signs of their Lord reach them, but they turned away therefrom.
The age of the present world is limited. Here life cannot be devoid of grief. Here unpleasantness goes along with pleasantness. Evil cannot be separated from goodness, nor goodness from evil. In such circumstances, man is unable to understand how the eternal world of the hereafter, which will be free from grief, 35-34, can come into existence. If the world of the hereafter is to be created with some matter other than that of this world, that is something beyond man's ken. But if the other world of the hereafter is to be created from the matter of this world, it has to be conceded that this world in itself lacks the capacity to bring into existence a world of total perfection. The very existence of the raiser of this issue is in itself an answer to this question. The body of a human being is wholly made of earth, elements, but it has unique properties, none of which is found in the earth. Man hears, he speaks, and he thinks, he performs wonderful acts, though the earth with which he is made is not capable of performing these acts. From earth and elements, a non-earthly creature has wondrously emerged. This is a matter confirmed by everyday experience. In view of this, how strange it is that man should harbor doubts about the advent of the hereafter. If a living and active man comes into existence from earth, if fragrant flowers and luscious fruits emerge from earth, then why cannot a more perfect world emerge from our present world? The message of God and the hereafter, issued directly by God himself, is accompanied by clear signs which establish it as a true call from the Almighty. Its being on the lines of nature, on which the system of God's eternal world is established, its being supported by arguments that cannot be countered by anybody, its being backed by a preacher of God's word whose seriousness and sincerity are above doubt, its repeated survival of the destructive plans of its opponents, despite their superior power, all these are clear indications of its being based on truth. In spite of all this, man does not believe in it, and is not willing to support it. The reason for this is that all these proofs, in spite of all their clarity, always appear through a veil of cause and effect. When these signs come to a man's attention, he attributes them to certain causes and pays no heed to them. He does not become inclined to accept their validity. Instead of accepting the call, he would say that had this call been on behalf of God, then God and his angels would have been visible to the naked eye. But this idea is absolutely meaningless, because when God and his angels appear in all their glory, it will be the time for the final rendering of accounts and not for getting a call of truth or for preaching about the greatness of God.
And now they reject the truth when it reaches them, but soon shall they learn the reality of what they used to mock at.
See Surah Al-An'am ayah 6 for the Tafsir.
See they not how many of those before them we did destroy? Generations we had established on the earth, in strength such as we have not given to you, for whom we poured out rain from the skies in abundance, and gave fertile streams flowing beneath their feet. Yet for their sins we destroyed them, and raised in their wake fresh generations to succeed them.
Those who have firmly established themselves in this world having accumulated many material goods for themselves, and who see the manifestations of their own greatness and popularity around them, are always liable to be a prey to misunderstanding. They look down upon the things God has gathered around the collar of truth as compared to the things around them. This overweening confidence on their part increases to such an extent that they even become unafraid of God. They make fun of the warning given by the missionary of truth that, if their arrogance continued, their material achievements would not be able to save them from God's scourge. Their treatment of the day as a non-entity makes his warnings also insignificant. Even historic instances of God having destroyed materially well-set-up people, as if their lives were of no value whatsoever, fail to teach them a lesson. The recurrence of events in which one set of people face decline while another set rises shows that the rule of crime and punishment is prevalent here, but man does not learn a lesson from this. The succeeding generations repeat those very same actions as were indulged in by their predecessors, due to which they were destroyed.
If we had sent unto thee a written message on parchment, so that they could touch it with their hands, the unbelievers would have been sure to say, "This is nothing but obvious magic."
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 9, for the Tafsir.
They say, "Why is not an angel sent down to him? If we did send down an angel, the matter would be settled at once, and no respite would be granted them."
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 9, for the Tafsir.
If we had made it an angel, we should have sent him as a man, and we should certainly have caused them confusion in a matter which they have already covered with confusion.
The reason for a man going astray in this world is that here he has complete freedom to reject the truth. He even has the opportunity to give fine justifications for erroneous thoughts, words, and deeds. Man enjoys full freedom in this world of trial to accept or reject the truth as he pleases. If the preacher of God's word appears in the shape of an ordinary man, the reason given for ignoring him could be that his effectiveness hinges on a talent for leadership and has nothing to do with truth or righteousness. Similarly, if a book complete in every detail comes down from the sky, he will say, "This is mere magic," to justify his rejection of it. The people of Makkah used to ask, if the prophet was appointed to convey God's message, why God's angels were not with him to testify. A man talks like this because he is not serious about the call of God's message. If he is serious, he will immediately come to know that this world is a place of trial. The test can be carried out only when realities are hidden behind a curtain. If the hidden realities were revealed and God and his angels made their appearance, there would be no question of prophethood or of giving the call of truth, because thereafter nobody would dare to deny the realities. In the present world, because of their devotion to externals, people are unable to recognize the messenger of God from the importance of his message. God's messenger appears to them like an ordinary man suddenly emerging and claiming very high status. They assess him on the basis of his outward appearance, and finding him insignificant in that respect, they deny him.
Mocked were many messengers before thee, but their scoffers were hemmed in by the thing that they mocked.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 13, for the Tafsir.
Say, travel through the earth and see what was the end of those who rejected truth.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 13, for the Tafsir.
Say, to whom belongeth all that is in the heavens and on earth? Say, to Allah. He had inscribed for himself the rule of mercy, that he will gather you together for the day of judgment. There is no doubt whatever. It is they who have lost their own souls that will not believe.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 13, for the Tafsir.
To him belongeth all that dwelleth or lurketh in the night and the day, for he is the one who heareth and knoweth all things.
In this world, communicating the word of God is a task of some complexity. This is because God has ordained that the truth be veiled in doubt, so that man may find reasons for rejecting it alongside arguments in support of its acceptance. The real test of man is that he should be able to tear down the veil of doubt and raise himself to the position of certainty. He should eschew doubt in all its guises and take a firm hold of the divine truth. Believing without seeing is the real test of man. When reality is made visible, its acceptance has no value. Man denies the obvious truth. On obtaining power, he degrades others. One man makes another the victim of his tyranny. Why is this so? Does man wield absolute power in this world? Is there nobody here to stay his hand? Is there a combination of opposites in God's regime, given that he seems to have filled man's world with oppression and injustice and the rest of the world with mercy and meaningfulness? No, it is not so. God, who is the Lord of heaven and earth, is also the Lord of that creature who toils during the day and rests at night. Just as God's grace is given unstintingly to the universe, so also is it given to human beings. The difference is that for the rest of the world, His grace is fully in evidence right from the first day, whereas for the world of human beings, His grace will be fully shown on the day of judgment.
Say, shall I take for my protector any other than Allah, the maker of the heavens and the earth? And He it is that feedeth but is not fed. Say, nay, but I am commanded to be the first of those who bow to Allah in Islam, and be not thou of the company of those who join gods with Allah.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 16, for the Tafsir.
Say, I would, if I disobeyed my Lord, indeed have fear of the penalty of a mighty day.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 16, for the Tafsir.
On that day, if the penalty is averted from any, it is due to Allah's mercy, and that would be salvation, the obvious fulfillment of all desire.
Man is a creature with a will of his own, and that is why voluntary worship is required of him. Those who do not choose to exercise their will rightly do not deserve a share in God's bounties, not having fulfilled the purpose of their creation. After the period of trial is over, all human beings will be gathered in a new world. On that day, God will take into His hands the direct control of the rest of the world. On that day, God's scale of justice will be operative. On that day, those who admitted the reality and surrendered themselves to God will come to the fore, and those who did not, having led a life of arrogance and obstinacy in the world, will be the losers. Whenever a man adopts an arrogant stance, it is on the basis of some backing. But the things on which his arrogance depends for support have no value in this universe. Nothing has any power here, for the sole possessor of power is God. All are dependent on Him, and He is not dependent on anyone. So, on the day of judgment, only those who had sought out the real support, who had made the true faith the religion of their lives, will be successful.
If Allah touch thee with affliction, none can remove it but He. If He touch thee with happiness, He hath power over all things.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 18, for the Tafsir.
He is the irresistible, watching from above over His worshippers, and He is the wise, acquainted with all things.
The different parts of the vast universe spread out before us are so interconnected that for an event to occur, the coordination of the whole universe is necessary. This being so, no human being is capable of causing any event to occur, because no human being is in control of the universe. Here, even a small event takes place only when countless universal factors combine to set it in motion, and God alone is the controller of these factors. Amidst these universal factors, man is only the possessor of a will. The fact is that in this world, whether one receives blessings or afflictions, both conditions come about by the direct orders of God. In view of this, it is utter foolishness for a man to think that he can save one or destroy another. It is also quite meaningless for a man to fear or build his hopes on anybody except God.
Say, what thing is most weighty in evidence? Say, Allah is witness between me and you. This Qur'an hath been revealed to me by inspiration, that I may warn you and all whom it reaches. Can you possibly bear witness that besides Allah there is another Allah? Say they, I cannot bear witness. Say, but in truth He is the one Allah, and I truly am innocent of your blasphemy of joining others with Him.
In the ongoing struggle between the proponents, on the one hand of truth, and on the other of falsehood, the only decisive factor is the Book of God. There is nobody who knows the full facts or has any real authority except God. So God, the only being who is capable of settling this dispute, has given an arbiter to the people in the form of the Qur'an. Now man has only one course open to him. If he is not aware of the veracity of the Qur'an, he should investigate and satisfy himself that it is the Book of God. When he comes to know that it is really the Book of God, he should necessarily be satisfied with whatever is advocated therein. One who is not in agreement with the decision of the Qur'an runs the risk of being forced to accept its verdict in the hereafter after much degradation and punishment. The Qur'an has been revealed so that, before the arrival of the time of judgment, people may be made aware of what awaits them. Prophet Muhammad performed this task during his prophethood, and the same work has to be continued by his followers, till doomsday. The Qur'an tells us in advance how God is going to treat people in the eternal world of the hereafter. Those who are assigned the task of delivering this message to the people will be free of the responsibility once they have fully conveyed the message, but those to whom it is delivered will be free in the eyes of God only when they have accepted it and reformed themselves accordingly. The missionary's responsibility ends with his preaching, while that of the addressee ends only on his fulfilling his religious obligations.
Those to whom we have given the book know this as they know their own sons. Those who have lost their own souls refuse therefore to believe.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 24, for the Tafsir.
Who doth more wrong than he who inventeth a lie against Allah or rejecteth his signs? But verily the wrong doers never shall prosper.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 24, for the Tafsir.
One day shall we gather them all together, we shall say to those who ascribed partners to us, where are the partners whom ye invented and talked about?
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 24, for the Tafsir.
There will then be left no subterfuge for them but to say, By Allah our Lord, we were not those who joined gods with Allah.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 24, for the Tafsir.
Behold, how they lie against their own souls, but the lie which they invented will leave them in the lurch.
Reality is a familiar thing for man, because it is part of man's own nature and it speaks the same silent language throughout the universe. This was true of the Jews and the Christians, because their prophets and their scriptures had clearly heralded the advent of the last of the prophets and the Qur'an. So, for them to know about this was as good as knowing their own sons. In spite of things being so clear, why do people not accept the truth? It is because of the fear of some immediate loss. The cost of acceptance of the truth is that man has to pull himself down from a high status. He has to come out of the sphere of conformism and give up ready-made advantages. When a man is not ready to make these sacrifices, he does not accept the truth, and for the sake of instant gain, he pushes himself into a position of eternal loss. If he has a false sense of satisfaction with the stand he has taken, it is because in this world of trial, he is always successful in finding explanations and justifications in his support. He readily finds the words to reject arguments in favor of the truth, so much so that he feels free to willfully misinterpret truth and claim that the real truth is that which he has adopted. Whenever a man makes entities other than God the center of his attention, a magical halo gradually forms around them. He indulges in such wishful thinking as gives him the illusion that he has a firm hold of a very strong support. But on the day of judgment, when all the veils are torn asunder, and when he sees that all the supports except that of God were absolutely false, he will have no alternative but to contradict his own statements. In other words, such people at that time will become witnesses against their own falsity. In the hereafter, they will become the rejectors of those very things of which they had been proud of being attached to. The edifice of false beliefs and explanations they had constructed will be so totally destroyed that it will seem never to have existed.
Of them there are some who pretend to listen to thee, but we have thrown veils on their hearts, so they understand it not, and deafness in their ears, if they saw every one of the signs, not they will believe in them, insomuch that when they come to thee, they but dispute with thee. The unbelievers say, These are nothing but tales of the ancients.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 26, for the Tafsir.
Others they keep away from it, and themselves they keep away, but they only destroy their own souls, and they perceive it not.
In the present world of trial, man has every opportunity to find pretexts or justifications for anything that suits his interests. There are some who appear to listen to God's message, but if from the outset they are prejudiced, the truth falls on deaf ears and so fails to touch their hearts. They set up mental barriers and, because of this, have no idea of their religious duties, even after they have been carefully explained to them. Arguments, no matter how clearly stated, fail to convince them because, whenever they allow anything of religious significance to cross these barriers, it is with the intention of disputing it, rather than receiving guidance from it. They have no intention of hearing or understanding anything of moral import. As a result, the relevant aspects of any such issue do not come within their mental grasp. Moreover, they are ever ready to present religious matters in a contorted manner. Correct arguments have no influence upon them. Due to their perverseness, they seek out in all ethical questions certain facts which they can misrepresent in order to delude themselves and others that they are on the right path.
If thou couldst but see when they are confronted with the fire, they will say, Would that we were but sent back. Then would we not reject the signs of our Lord, but would be amongst those who believe.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 28, for the Tafsir.
Yea, in their own eyes will become manifest what before they concealed. But if they were returned, they would certainly relapse to the things they were forbidden, for they are indeed liars.
For people who have this temperament, all moralizing is in vain. because in this world of trial there is no such rule as prevents them from fabricating counter-arguments. Even if they do not manage to concoct such arguments, they will contemptuously ignore the truth, saying, "What is new in this?" This is the same old story which we have been hearing for such a long time. In this way, even after being convinced of the veracity of moral precepts, they will find some excuse to reject them. Before God, such people are doubly guilty, because not only do they themselves refrain from admitting the truth, but they also make the divine argument seem dubious to people in general by distorting its true meaning. They have so little understanding themselves that they are unable to make any profound analysis of the subject. In the life of this world, such people make very tall claims, and because they lose nothing by denying the truth, they mislead themselves and others. But on the day of judgment, when they are called to account and threatened with hellfire, the truth will overwhelm them. Suddenly they will start accepting those very principles which they had denied in this life.
And they sometimes say, "There is nothing except our life on this earth, and never shall we be raised up again."
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 30 for the Tafsir.
If thou couldst but see when they are confronted with their Lord, he will say, "Is not this the truth?" They will say, "Yea, by our Lord." He will say, "Taste ye then the penalty, because ye rejected faith."
Whenever a man denies the truth or follows the desires of his self, it is because he does not live his life in this world on the understanding that he will be resurrected after death, and made to stand before the Lord of the universe to give an account of himself in everyday life. Man has been given a certain power which he uses unhesitatingly. He has the material prop of wealth and friends and companions on whom he relies. He has been given a brain which he uses to think out arrogant strategies and find clever pretexts for his transgressions. The success of his initiatives deceives him. He starts placing false reliance on things other than God, and imagines that the position he enjoys today is of a perennial nature. He forgets that whatever he has been given in this world is only by way of trial and is not a matter of entitlement. This type of life is thoroughly sinful, whether led in open denial of the hereafter or without actually uttering the words of denial. On what basis does man rush towards worldly things thinking them his own? Man has not paid any fee for the sunlight in which he walks or for the air he breathes. No part or ingredient of the earth from which he derives the where withal to live has been made by him. None of the favorite things towards which he rushes can he call his own. When these things have not been created by man, should not the Lord of all these things have any right over man? The fact is that man's very utilization of the present world makes it only logical that he should be made to stand before his Lord on the day of reckoning.
Lost indeed are they who treat it as a falsehood that they must meet Allah, until on a sudden the hour is on them, and they say, "Ah, woe unto us that we took no thought of it, for they bear their burdens on their backs, and evil indeed are the burdens that they bear."
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 32 for the Tafsir.
What is the life of this world but play and amusement? But best is the home in the hereafter for those who are righteous. Will ye not then understand?
A life lived on the assumption that the world belongs to God is a truly God-fearing life, i.e. a life of taqwa, whereas a life in which no such assumption is made is one of sinfulness, being entirely given over to worldly pleasures and trivialities. The latter pleasure-seeking life will last in terms of eternity for only a matter of days, and with death will come to an end, whereas the God-fearing life, regulated by God's eternal principles, will continue to stand man in good stead both in this world and the next. In the present world man denies these realities, but as soon as the freedom given to him under test conditions ends, he will be compelled to accept them, though acceptance at that time will be of no avail.
Know indeed the grief which their words do cause thee. It is not thee they reject, it is the signs of Allah which the wicked contemn.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 36 for the Tafsir.
Rejected were the messengers before thee, with patience and constancy they bore their rejection and their wrongs, until our aid did reach them. There is none that can alter the words and decrees of Allah. Already hast thou received some account of those messengers.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 36 for the Tafsir.
If their spurning is hard on thy mind, yet if thou wert able to seek a tunnel in the ground or a ladder to the skies and bring them a sign, what good? If it were Allah's will, He could gather them together unto true guidance, so be not thou amongst those who are swayed by ignorance and impatience.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 36 for the Tafsir.
Those who listen in truth, be sure, will accept. As to the dead, Allah will raise them up, then will they be turned unto Him.
Abu Jahl said to the Prophet, O Muhammad, by God, we do not reject you. Only we deny that which you have brought. That is, the people of Makkah who had not embraced the faith nevertheless admitted that he was a righteous person. But to say of a person that his utterances were marked by truth and reality amounted to glorifying him, and they were not prepared to give him such high honor. When they called him truthful and honest, they had the mental satisfaction that he was a man of their own level, but admitting that God's own discourse emanated from his lips amounted to according him a status higher than their own, and such an admission is the most difficult one for any man to make. In the present world, God does not appear directly in his original shape. He appears before men in the shape of arguments, signs, and symbols. Therefore, not accepting argument in support of the truth, or turning a blind eye to the signs in its favor amounts to a refusal to accept God, or to turning one's eyes away from the face of God. However, it is not part of God's plan to appear along with compelling miracles, for if his call were to be presented in this context, freedom of action would come to an end. For the purpose of maintaining test conditions, an atmosphere of freedom of action must be perpetuated. The day should not be put out by the fact that he has only the weight of arguments to offer, or that he possesses no extraordinary powers of control. Instead of being worried on this account, he should exercise patience. The making of efforts in connection with the mission of truth is on the one hand a test of the day's patience, and on the other a test of the addressees as to whether they are able to see a glimpse of God's representative in a man like themselves. Are they able to recognize the majesty of God's message in the words coming out of a man's mouth? Do they bow down before arguments that are devoid of material strength, as they will bow down before a strong and powerful God? For those who have life in them, the whole universe is full of God's signs, but those who have extinguished the fire of their sensitivities will not be able to learn a lesson from anything except the terrors of doomsday.
Say, why is not a sign sent down to him from his Lord? Say, Allah hath certainly power to send down a sign, but most of them understand not.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 39 for the Tafsir.
There is not an animal that lives on the earth, nor a being that flies on its wings, but forms part of communities like you. Nothing have we omitted from the book, and they all shall be gathered to their Lord in the end.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 39 for the Tafsir.
Those who reject our signs are deaf and dumb, in the midst of darkness profound. Whom Allah willeth, he leaveth to wander, whom he willeth, he placeth on the way that is straight.
If the brief import of these verses is expanded, it will be as follows. They ask us why extraordinary signs do not accompany the Prophet in order to establish that his message is truthful. God has the full power to present all types of signs. But the real question is not that of signs, but of people's ignorance. God's countless signs are spread out here everywhere. When people are not able to learn anything from these existing signs, what advantage can they derive from the presentation of a new sign? The various types of animals moving about on the earth and the birds flying in the air are signs for you. What God requires of these living creatures is the same as he requires of you, and God has written down his requirements for all living creatures, for human beings in terms of Islamic law, and for other creatures by way of their instincts. Creatures like birds and animals carry out God's writ to the letter, but man is not prepared to accept God's writ. Therefore, the question is not of signs but of blindness. What is the justification for man to adopt any religion other than the one adopted by all of God's creatures? The fact is that those who are inclined to act properly do so without demanding any new signs, and those who are not so inclined demand signs, in spite of already being surrounded by innumerable signs. Such people are inevitably destined to be assembled on doomsday and shown how all types of animals, having adopted the realistic approach, trod the path of God. It was human beings who deviated from it. The animal kingdom is synonymous with the world of nature. Animals are on the constant lookout for food, but in obtaining it, there is no persecution by one animal on another. Needs are satisfied, but without selfishness. Even if one animal is troubled by another, there is no hostility or enmity. Among them tasks are performed, but there is no ambition to get the credit for them. Unlike animals, man is arrogant. He is not prepared to be regulated by God's plan. God's requirement of man is the same as that which is fulfilled by the animals. Then why is it necessary for man to demand a miracle? Are not there living signs in the shape of animals, which provide an example of God's methods and also corroborate for mankind the truth of the Prophet's teachings?
Say, think ye to yourselves, if there come upon you the wrath of Allah, or the hour that ye dread, would ye then call upon other than Allah? Reply if ye are truthful.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 41, for the Tafsir.
Nay, on him would ye call, and if it be his will, he would remove the distress which occasioned your call upon him, and ye would forget the false gods which ye join with him.
History bears witness to the fact that a man starts invoking the name of God in crucial moments. Even one who relied on beings other than God or did not believe in God's existence at all. This is nature's testament to God's existence and his being the absolute authority. Under extraordinary circumstances, when the outward veils are removed and when man dismisses all superficial thoughts, he does not remember anything except God. In other words, on reaching the point of helplessness, every man admits the existence of God. But the Quran demands that man should follow a course of acceptance and obedience at a time when there is no apparent compulsion to do so. All animals other than man instinctively lead realistic lives. But what pushes man towards realism and the admission of the truth is the psychology of fear. In the world of animals, all things are accomplished by instinct. The same role is played by fear of God, taqwa, in the world of human beings.
Before thee we sent messengers to many nations, and we afflicted the nations with suffering and adversity, that they might learn humility.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 45, for the Tafsir.
When the suffering reached them from us, why then did they not learn humility? On the contrary, their hearts became hardened, and Satan made their sinful acts seem alluring to them.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 45, for the Tafsir.
When they forgot the warning they had received, we opened to them the gates of all good things, until, in the midst of their enjoyment of our gifts, on a sudden we called them to account, when lo, they were plunged in despair.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 45, for the Tafsir.
Of the wrong-doers the last remnant was cut off. Praise be to Allah, the cherisher of the worlds.
When a man is faced with the truth and he does not accept it, God does not seize him immediately, but gives him some jolts by way of monetary loss or physical trouble, so that he should review his way of life and his thinking should be revolutionized. Life's events are not mere happenings, but vibrant messages from God sent to wake a man up from his sleep of forgetfulness. But man learns nothing from these things. He consoles himself by saying that these are normal ups and downs and that such ups and downs do occur in life. In this way, Satan all too often diverts the mind of the individual from possible divine disfavor and pushes him into negligence of his religious duties by providing him with plausible justifications. When a man indulges in this type of behavior again and again, his heart loses all sensitivity to what is true or false, right or wrong. His conscience eventually becomes totally blunted. When a man ignores the warnings received from God, his approach towards him changes. Now, God's decision for him is that the doors to comfort and success should be open for him. He should be granted prosperity in full measure. His honor and popularity should increase. This is in reality a punishment so that the evil hidden in him should come out clearly. The purpose of this is that man should feel satisfied with himself and become more and more insensitive and much bolder in ignoring the truth. And as a result, his meriting punishment is fully established. When this purpose is achieved, God's retribution suddenly overwhelms him. He is deprived of worldly life and presented before the court of the hereafter, so that he may be awarded the punishment of hell. This world is God's world. Here the right to have one's greatness extolled belongs to only one being. So if a man ignores the divine truth, he is in fact disrespecting God. In a world overarched by the majesty of the Almighty, he wants to establish his own greatness. In this way, he is indulging in unparalleled transgression. He is being insolent to God before whom no behavior other than that of the utmost humility is proper.
Say, think ye, if Allah took away your hearing and your sight and sealed up your hearts, who, a God other than Allah, could restore them to you? See how we explain the signs by various symbols, yet they turn aside.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 47, for the Tafsir.
Say, think ye, if the punishment of Allah comes to you, whether suddenly or openly, will any be destroyed except those who do wrong?
The granting of ears, eyes, and heart to man indicates what his Creator wants from him. The Creator wants man to hear and see his signs and accept them using rational arguments. If a man does not utilize these God-given capabilities for the purpose they are meant, then he is running the risk that he may be declared incapable and his capabilities may be snatched from him. How helpless is one who is rendered blind, deaf, and mentally disabled because such a person will remain of no social value. But there is a kind of helplessness greater than this. It is to have ears but be deaf to the truth. It is to have eyes but be blind to the truth. It is to have a heart in one's breast but be incapable of understanding the truth. This deprivation is much more serious than the first kind, because it makes a man debased and worthless in respect of the hereafter. There is no shortcoming more heinous than this. If a man is warned of the result of the denial of truth, and has the bravado to respond insolently, it is because, being well placed in the world, he thinks that he need not fear the scourge of God. Indeed, he imagines he is exempt from divine retribution, and the more daring ones, such as he, challenge God's messenger and say, "If you are truthful, bring down upon us God's wrath, and let us see." They do not understand that if God vents his anger, it will be on them and not on anyone else.
We send the messengers only to give good news and to warn, so those who believe and mend their lives, upon them shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 50, for the Tafsir.
But those who reject our signs, them shall punishment touch, for that they cease not from transgressing.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 50, for the Tafsir.
Say, I tell you not that with me are the treasures of Allah, nor do I know what is hidden, nor do I tell you I am an angel. I but follow what is revealed to me. Say, can the blind be held equal to the seeing? Will you then consider not?
The preacher of God's word appears in the world not only as one who gives good news, but also as a warner. In other words, the basis on which a man is tested before God is that he should recognize the truth conveyed in the language of admonition and reform himself accordingly. If he fails to recognize the truth and demands magic feats and charms as a condition for acceptance, he merely proves his moral blindness, and for such blind people, there is no fate but havoc and destruction in this world of God.
Give this warning to those in whose hearts is the fear that they will be brought to judgment before their Lord. Except for him they will have no protector nor intercessor, that they may guard against evil.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 52, for the Tafsir.
Send not away those who call on their Lord morning and evening, seeking his face. In naught art thou accountable for them, and in naught are they accountable for thee, that thou shouldst turn them away, and thus be one of the unjust.
Admonition is effective only for those who live in fear of God. Only one who is concerned about possible danger can be warned about imminent calamity. On the contrary, those who live reckless lives are never serious about admonition, and that is why they are never prepared to heed advice. Recklessness or fearlessness arises from two factors. One is worship of the world, and the other is worship of ancestors. Those who are lost in worldly things, who are satisfied with worldly success, do not even remember that one day, when they die, they shall have to appear before their Creator and Lord, and so do not consider the hereafter as anything significant. Remembrance of the hereafter does not therefore find a place in their thinking. Their temperament is such that they ignore such things, considering them unimportant. Another category of individuals includes those who consider recommendation the key to paradise. They presume that the great ones for whom they have developed an attachment will be their supporters and commanders in the hereafter, and that no matter how unfavorable the conditions, that will be sufficient for their salvation. Such people live in the fond hope that since they have grasped the hands of some holy personalities, and since they are with the group which is ostensibly loved and favored by God, no affair of theirs can go awry. It is this mentality which makes them unafraid of the hereafter. They are not ready to give serious consideration to anything which may throw doubt on their position in the life to come.
Thus did we try some of them by comparison with others, that they should say, Is it these then that Allah hath favored from amongst us? Doth not Allah know best those who are grateful?
Those who have achieved wealth and popularity prefer to give weightage to the considerations of their worldly interests, rather than support the pure and unadulterated call of truth, because, according to them, supporting the truth would amount to demolition of the entire structure of their vested interests. Moreover, when they see that truth is upheld by people of ordinary status, their way of thinking is further strengthened. They feel that by associating with the truth, they will be lowering their own status. Instead of testing the truth on the touchstone of truth, they judge it by their own criteria, i.e. by their own private and personal touchstone. And when the truth does not measure up to this, they ignore it.
When those come to thee who believe in our signs, say, Peace be on you, your Lord hath inscribed for himself the rule of mercy. Verily, if any of you did evil and ignorance, and thereafter repented, and amend his conduct, lo, he is oft forgiving, most merciful.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 55 for the Tafsir.
Thus do we explain the signs in detail, that the way of the sinners may be shown up.
During the period of the Prophet Muhammad, there were those who demanded miracles before accepting his bona fides. Unlike them, there were others who embraced the faith on hearing him recite the verses of the Quran. This sort of test of man goes on in every era. In the present world, God does not appear in physical form. He advances his arguments through the medium of the bearer of truth, casting them in verbal form so that they may be presented to mankind. Now, one in whom nature is alive is able to see the glow of God in these arguments, and he accepts it and bows down before it. But those who have shrouded their nature in artificial veils fail to find God through his words. They are unable to see God through reasoning, and therefore they want God to appear before them physically, in an observable shape. But this is not possible in the present world of trial. Here, only that person will find God who is able to recognize him while he is still invisible. One who insists on witnessing God in physical form in this world faces spiritual destitution of the most extreme kind. Those who sedulously avoid the truth by adopting a wrong approach accuse those who accept the truth of various kinds of wrongdoing, so that they may prove themselves to be much better than them. They are unable to see their own transgressions, but if a truthful person happens to commit any slight mistake, they try to exaggerate it with a view to establishing that those who have rallied to the quest for truth are unreliable. The truth is quite the reverse. Believers who have abjured untruth and accepted truth tread the path of faith and righteousness. In this way, in accordance with the will of God, they become entitled to receive inspiration for the betterment of their present position and share the bounties of God. Unlike them, those who steer clear of the truth only prove by their actions that they are not interested in adopting the way of faith and righteousness. Even when such people are deprived of God's guidance, their bravado does not come to an end, and it is their effrontery which constitutes the greatest crime in this world of God. God expresses himself in the language of symbols. Symbols are useful only to one who has the desire to read or interpret them. Similarly, guidance will be available only to one who is eager to have it. One who shows no interest in guidance has no other option but to go astray.
Say, I am forbidden to worship those others than Allah, whom ye call upon. Say, I will not follow your vain desires. If I did, I would stray from the path, and be not of the company of those who receive guidance.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 57, for the Tafsir.
Say, for me, I work on a clear sign from my Lord, but ye reject him. What you would see hastened is not in my power. The command rests with none but Allah. He declares the truth, and he is the best of judges.
Man's own wishful thinking, which he presumes to be a reality, is all too often raised to the status of something worth worshipping. Sometimes, just to save himself from the consequences of his negligence of religious duties, he accepts someone as God's favorite and treats him as one who is supposed to support him before God and recommend his case to him. Sometimes he imagines such a person to have charismatic, supernatural greatness in him, and that he could make up for his own shortcomings by attaching himself to him. Sometimes, due to his easygoing nature, he invents a God who is easy of access and who can easily be pleased with small things. But all such things are mere suppositions, and suppositions can never lead anyone to reality. However, there are some who become so blinkered by cheap demands that they even challenge those who have rallied to the side of the real Lord of the universe. They challenge them thus: if all greatness and majesty belong to the one and only God whom you represent, then arrange to let his retribution come down upon us. Let us see. They dare to behave in this way because they observe that they are much more surrounded by worldly glories than the days who work for the acceptance of God's unity. They forget that the material amenities available to them are due to their devotion to worldly considerations and worldly interests, whereas the missionaries of God, who are bereft of all these things, are in such a condition because their yearning for the hereafter has prevented them from stooping to the level of devotion to worldly goals.
Say, if what you would see hasten were in my power, the matter would be settled at once between you and me. But Allah knoweth best those who do wrong.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 59, for the Tafsir.
With him are the keys of the unseen, the treasures that none knoweth but he. He knoweth whatever there is on the earth and in the sea. Not a leaf doth fall but with his knowledge. There is not a grain in the darkness or depths of the earth, nor anything fresh or dry, green or withered, but is inscribed in a record clear to those who can read.
The present world is one of test and trial. Therefore, what is truly significant here is not the material conditions in which a man lives, but whether he is taking a stand on the rationale of truth or on suppositions and false hopes. In the final analysis, only that person will be successful who takes a stand on the real rationale of truth. The people who rely on suppositions in this world of God will be ultimately reduced to a state of utter helplessness. How could the final fate of the world, which is functioning under the strict control of the Almighty, become relegated to an abyss of false hopes?
It is you to the that you of you in a hidden to feel you are born, whatever it be, you have here you, but you have what he did.
God has created this world in such a way that it provides practical examples of those facts to which the attention of human beings is called. If a man does not close his eyes and does not screen off his mind with false veils, he will find in the whole universe practical demonstrations of the Quran's challenge to man's thinking processes. Branches emerge from a tree trunk and leaves sprout from the branches, but there is a difference in their respective joints. In other words, the Creator knows that the branches have to remain attached to the trunk, while the leaves have to detach themselves and fall down. If this were not so, the leaves would fail to separate from the branches and the entire system of bringing new life to the tree every year would be upset. Similarly, when a seed is sown, the earth in which it is placed already possesses all the ingredients from which it derives nourishment and finally grows into a full-fledged tree. Then, how is it possible that God, who is aware of the conditions of such things as a leaf and a seed, could be unaware of the human condition?
He is the irresistible, watching from above over his worshippers, and he sets guardians over you. At length, when death approaches one of you, our angels take his soul, and they never fail in their duty.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayat 62 for the Tafsir.
And our men returned unto Allah, their protector. The only reality is not his the command, and he is the swiftest in taking account.
Our earth is a unique phenomenon in the whole universe. The system prevailing here has been made congenial to the conditions of God's creatures, human beings. A major part of the interior of the earth consists of fire, but it does not burst open. The sun is at exactly the right distance mathematically, and does not move closer or farther away. A man always needs air and water, so air has been spread over the earth in gaseous form and water has been stored under the surface of the earth in liquid form. There are countless similar arrangements that are constantly maintained in the right proportions on the earth. If there were even a slight variation in these, it would be impossible for a human being to live here. Sleep is a wonderful thing. Man roams about here and there. He sees and speaks, but when he sleeps all his senses become suspended, just as if light had oozed out of them. When he has had his full sleep and wakes up, he becomes as active as before. This is, so to say, an example of life and death. This event demonstrates how a man will die, and how he will be resurrected, i.e. be brought back to life. These events prove that all men are in the power of God, and soon that day will come when God will take faithful decisions about them in the exercise of his powers.
Say, who is it that delivereth you from the dark recesses of land and sea, when ye call upon him in humility and silent terror? If he only delivers us from these dangers, we vow we shall truly show our gratitude.
No other living creature in this world faces so many troubles as human beings do. This is so because man is intended to be subjected to adverse conditions, so that all artificial, unreal thoughts are driven out of his mind, and he is able to see his own true nature. The fact is that whenever a man confronts any major trouble, he starts single-mindedly calling upon God. At that time, all the man-made veils are swept away from his mind. He comes to realize that in this world man is completely humble and helpless, and it is God alone who has all the power. But as soon as his troubles are eased, he reverts to his usual neglect and recklessness, and becomes the same man as he was earlier.
Say it is Allah that delivereth you from these and all other distresses, and yet you worship false gods.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 65 for the Tafsir.
Say, he hath power to send calamities on you, from above and below, or to cover you with confusion in party strife, giving you a taste of mutual vengeance, each from the other. See how we explain the signs by various symbols that they may understand.
Basically, polytheism, shirk, is the reposing of one's faith in some entity other than God, while monotheism is directing of man's entire faith solely towards God. One form of polytheism is that which involves worship of deities and of other phenomena, but exhibiting ingratitude instead of gratitude is also shirk. The more common form of shirk is that whereby a man makes a deity of himself. He starts having faith only in himself. When a man proves to be vain, it is as if he has faith in his efforts alone. When a man considers his earnings as actually having been generated by him, he in fact has faith only in his own talents. When a man overlooks another's right, he thinks that nobody can inflict any punishment on him for doing so. When a man dares to oppress another, he thinks that he has full powers over the wronged person, and there is nobody to prevent him from doing whatever he likes to him. All these are forms of vanity and pride is before God the worst type of shirk, because indulging in this amounts to placing oneself in the position of God.
Thy people reject this, though it is the truth. Say, not mine is the responsibility for arranging your affairs.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 68 for the Tafsir.
For every message is a limit of time, and soon shall ye know it.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 68 for the Tafsir.
When thou seest men engaged in vain discourse about our signs, turn away from them unless they turn to a different theme. If Satan ever makes thee forget, then after recollection, sit not thou in the company of those who do wrong.
If due consideration were to be given to the human condition, no one would ever be proud. Man is buffeted by winds which can turn into a cyclone at any time and completely wreck his life. He stands on land which can at any time be rent apart by earthquakes. He lives in a society which is so fraught with internal enmities that even a spark is enough to push the whole of society into a bloodbath.
On their account no responsibility falls on the righteous, but their duty is to remind them, that they may learn to fear Allah.
See Surah Al-An'am Ayat 70 for the Tafsir.
Leave alone those who take their religion to be mere play and amusement, and are deceived by the life of this world, but proclaim to them this truth, that every soul delivers itself to ruin by its own acts. It will find for itself no protector or intercessor except Allah. If it offered every ransom or reparation, none will be accepted. Such is the end of those who deliver themselves to ruin by their own acts. They will have for drink only boiling water, and for punishment, one most grievous, for they persisted in rejecting Allah.
Abdullah ibn Abbas says that God fixed a religious festival day, ID, for every community, the purpose being that on that day they should glorify God, offer prayers to Him, and fill the whole day with His remembrance. Those who came later made their religious festival, ID, a day of fun and frolic. Tafsir Kabir. There is a purpose behind every religious activity, and then there is its outward aspect too. The purpose of ID is the collective demonstration of the glorification of God and His remembrance. But too much attention is paid to the externals of ID, for example, the wearing of good clothes, arrangements for group activities, etc. Now, making ID a mere event of fun and frolic amounts to neglecting its real purpose, which becomes forgotten in the fuss which is made about its outward and material aspects, such as a show of good clothes and possessions, the hustle and bustle of shopping, arrangements for entertainment, and the pomp which goes with a show of one's position, etc.
Say, shall we indeed call on others besides Allah, things that can do us neither good nor harm, and turn on our heels after receiving guidance from Allah? Like one whom the evil ones have made into a fool, wandering bewildered through the earth, his friends calling, "Come to us," vainly guiding him to the path. Say, Allah's guidance is the only guidance, and we have been directed to submit ourselves to the Lord of the worlds.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayat 72 for the Tafsir.
To establish regular prayers and to fear Allah, for it is to Him that we shall be gathered together.
When communities go astray, all religious acts undergo this change. People ignore the true objective of the religious act and lay stress on externals. Now, those who reach the stage of making religion a source of worldly fun and frolic and are completely oblivious to its intended purpose prove by their deeds that they are neither serious nor sincere about religion. And those who are not serious about such matters cannot have anything explained to them in this connection, as this goes against their temperament. Moreover, possession of material things gives them the illusion that they are the possessors of truth also. Here they observe that all their needs are adequately fulfilled. Everywhere they are the life and soul of the gathering. There is no void in their lives. So they presume that in the hereafter also they will be successful. Such people, because of their misapprehensions, are not serious about the hereafter. But they should know that whatever they perpetrate will not be without consequences. They will be undone by their own actions. Their very arrogance will very soon rebound on them, and there will be no mitigation of their suffering.
It is He who created the heavens and the earth in true proportions. The day He saith, Be, behold. As His word is the truth. His will be the dominion the day the trumpet will be blown. He knoweth the unseen as well as that which is open, for he is the wise, well acquainted with all things.
There are two kinds of travelers in the desert. One puts his entire trust in God. When he goes astray, he begs God's assistance and soon has his feet set on the right path once again. The other has faith in entities other than God. When he loses his way in the desert, he is hardly aware that he is wandering aimlessly and ignores the calls of the faithful who would gladly redirect him. The reason for this difference in outlook is that the former traveler keeps an open mind. He has no difficulty in seeing which is the right path, and if he chances to stray from it, he is willing to accept God's guidance in order to return to it. The latter traveler, however, is lost right from the beginning, because he has fallen under the influence of Satan. His mind, therefore, works in a perverse way. The result is that he may listen, but he does not hear, and he may look, but he does not see.
Oh, Abraham said to his father Azar, Takest thou idols for gods? For I see thee and thy people in manifest error.
The seeking of things other than God is a futile pursuit of entities that have no power to benefit or harm anybody. Heaven and earth, along with the systems prevailing in them, deny the existence of any being having any powers except the one and only Supreme Being. Similarly, man makes worldly glories his purpose in life, and in his efforts to achieve this purpose, tramples upon the requirements of truth and justice. All this is absolutely wrong. This would mean that this world is but a showplace for selfish and egoistic persons. But the fact is that the perfect system prevalent in this universe reveals resplendent glimpses of the perfect God, and it is quite unimaginable that such a perfect being as he would create a showplace without meaning. The present situation existing in this world is purely temporary. God may at any moment promulgate a new command and break down the existing system. Then man's present freedom will come to an end and God's authority will prevail over human beings as it does today over all the other creatures in the universe. At that point, only those who have surrendered themselves to God during the test period will be successful, i.e. those who feared God without any pressure being brought to bear on them before they bowed down to him in body and soul.
So also did we show Abraham the power and the laws of the heavens and the earth, that he might with understanding have certitude.
See Surah Al-An'am, ayat 79, for the Tafsir.
When the night covered him over, he saw a star, he said, This is my Lord. But when it set, he said, I love not those that set.
See Surah Al-An'am, ayat 79, for the Tafsir.
When he saw the moon rising in splendor, he said, This is my Lord. But when the moon set, he said, Unless my Lord guide me, I shall surely be among those who go astray.
See Surah Al-An'am, ayat 79, for the Tafsir.
When he saw the sun rising in splendor, he said, This is my Lord, this is the greatest of all. But when the sun set, he said, O my people, I am indeed free from your guilt of giving partners to Allah.
See Surah Al-An'am, ayat 79, for the Tafsir.
For me, I have set my face firmly and truly towards him who created the heavens and the earth, and never shall I give partners to Allah.
One night Abraham was looking up at the sky in search of signs of the one and only God. Soon the planet Venus, whom his community was worshipping as God, appeared shining before him in all its brightness. A thought arose in his mind not as a question, but as an expression of astonishment. Is this the thing which could be my Lord? Is this the one we should worship? But then he saw it setting, i.e. disappearing from his sight. He exclaimed over this and asked how a thing which shone momentarily and then disappeared could be treated as worthy of worship. This was an argument based on observation which testified to the truth of his own belief. He had the same experience with the sun and the moon. Everything shines for some time, leaves people wonderstruck, and then vanishes. He presented these astronomical observations, which were for him a clear verification of the principle of the unity of God, before his community in his preaching as an argument, adopting the method which is known in philosophical terminology as accusative logic, that is, repeating the words of the addressee and then convincing him. This method has been used in the Quran at other places also, for example, in verse 97, chapter 20, entitled Taha. The signs of creation spread throughout the universe are not only a source of enhancement of faith, but also provide strong arguments for the call for truth.
His people disputed with him. He said, Come ye to dispute with me about Allah when he himself hath guided me. I fear not the beings ye associate with Allah, unless my Lord willeth, nothing can happen. My Lord comprehendeth in his knowledge all things. Will ye not yourselves be admonished?
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 81 for the Tafsir.
How should I fear the beings ye associate with Allah, when ye fear not to give partners to Allah without any warrant having been given to you? Which of us two parties hath more right to security? Tell me if ye know.
The story of Abraham narrated here is not the story of his search for truth, but that of his observation of truth. Abraham was born in Iraq 4,000 years ago in an environment in which the sun, moon, and stars were worshipped. However, nature's guidance and God's special help kept Abraham away from polytheism. His keen, vigilant eyes observed signs in the phenomena spread throughout the universe which supported the idea of the oneness of God, Tawhid, everywhere in the mirror of the universe. The face of the one God would appear before him. Feeling sorry for his community, he used to ask them why they were blind to reality in spite of the facts revealed before them. Whenever a thing or person is given the status of the worshipped one, Ma'bud, it naturally follows that the concepts of mysterious preeminence and greatness become attached to that thing or person. People start thinking that, in the scheme of the universe, this being has a high status such as is not enjoyed by anybody else. Pleasing him brings good fortune, while displeasing him does the reverse. Accordingly, when Abraham said that his community's deities were valueless, and that in this world of God they had absolutely no powers, people were afraid that, as a result of this insolence, they might be subjected to some suffering, and they started arguing with Abraham. They warned him against such talk and said that the vengeance of these deities would be wreaked upon him, he would become blind, go mad, would face destruction, etc.
It is those who believe and confuse not their beliefs with wrong that are truly in security, for they are on right guidance.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 84 for the Tafsir.
That was the reasoning about us, which we gave to Abraham to use against his people. We raise whom we will, degree after degree, for thy Lord is full of wisdom and knowledge.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 84 for the Tafsir.
We gave him Isaac and Jacob, all three guided, and before him we guided Noah, and among his progeny David, Solomon, Job, Joseph, Moses, and Aaron. Thus do we reward those who do good.
In this world there is only one supreme being, God, whose majesty and greatness are based on sound arguments. All other kinds of so-called greatness and the reverence for them are based on superstitious beliefs. God's supremacy stands by virtue of its own strength, while all other godheads owe their existence to the acceptance of their followers. If their followers refuse to accept them, they would become non-existent. Looking to externals, the worshippers of these deities are misled into believing that they are more securely situated than the worshippers of the one and only God. But this is the worst type of misunderstanding. It is one who goes by sound arguments who is in the really safe position. But if it is by compromising with worldly considerations and customs that he attempts to better his situation, this has no value from the point of view of his final fate. Sometimes the domination of false deities becomes so universal that even the worshippers of the real God are overwhelmed by it and make compromises. Worldly considerations and material interests are so closely linked with these false deities that, to all appearances, it seems that there is no other way to have a respectable life than to effect a compromise with the structure formed under them. But this procedure amounts to such an adulteration of one's own faith that it makes one's sincerity doubtful in the eyes of God.
And Zachariah and John and Jesus and Elias, all in the ranks of the righteous.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 86 for the Tafsir.
And Ismail and Elisha and Jonas and Lot, and to all we gave favor above the nations.
Excellence or superiority is not anyone's racial or national prerogative. It is a gift of God to only those individuals who keep themselves righteous according to God's guidance, who avoid all sorts of polytheism, shirk, and who throw themselves, body and soul, into the task of preaching admonition without remuneration. These are the people who make the Book of God their real guide. They identify themselves with the book to such an extent that the divine mysteries reveal themselves to them, the result of which process is known as wisdom, hikmah. These are the people whom God picks out, then commissions some of them whom he likes with the task of conveying his message, as prophets during the age of prophethood, and thereafter as days. God's reward either to prophets or day will be entirely on the basis of righteous action. Ihsan.
To them and to their fathers and progeny and brethren we chose them, and we guided them to a straight way.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 88 for the Tafsir.
This is the guidance of Allah. He giveth that guidance to whom He pleaseth of His worshippers. If they were to join other gods with Him, all that they did would be vain for them.
The task of giving the call of truth is undertaken only by those people who have become so selfless and so immersed in this work that they have no material expectations whatsoever of their addressees. Then the preacher cannot stage protests or run a campaign of demands pitted against the very person or group of persons to whom he is conveying the message of the hereafter. Such an action on the part of the messenger of truth would risk his exhortations being treated as ridiculous in the eyes of his addressees, and in society at large his call could never thus attain the status of a serious effort to convey the word of God.
These were the men to whom we gave the book, and authority, and prophethood. If these their descendants reject them, behold, we shall entrust their charge to a new people who reject them not.
In Makkah, a few individuals had embraced the faith on the strength of the Prophet Muhammad's preaching, but as a community the people had rejected him. Thereafter, God the Almighty softened the hearts of the people of Medina towards his call, and they embraced the faith as a community, so much so that it became possible for him to go to Medina and establish a center of Islam there. This aid from Almighty God was granted to the Prophet Muhammad in its complete form. However, God can give this aid even to the successors of the Prophet who rise to follow his call. This is something which God has always done according to the requirement of his days.
Those were the prophets who received Allah's guidance, copied the guidance they received, say, no reward for this do I ask of you, this is no less than a message for the nations.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 91, for the Tafsir.
No just estimate of Allah do they make when they say, nothing doth Allah send down to man by way of revelation. Say, who then sent down the book which Moses brought? A light and guidance to man, but ye make it into separate sheets for show, while ye conceal much of its contents. Therein were ye taught that which ye knew not, neither ye nor your fathers. Say, Allah sent it down, then leave them to plunge in vain discourse and trifling.
When the call of the Prophet Muhammad reached the people of Makkah, some of them asked certain Jews what they thought about it, and whether God's word had really been revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. The Jews replied that God had not made revelations to any human being. This is obviously very strange, because the Jews themselves accepted a series of prophets, thus tacitly admitting that God's word had indeed been revealed from time to time to human beings. But when a man blindly opposes anything, he will go to the extent of contradicting his own accepted ideas in the heat of attempting to defeat his opponent.
And this is a book which we have sent down, bringing blessings, and confirming the revelations which came before it, that thou mayest warn the mother of cities and all around her. Those who believe in the hereafter believe in this book, and they are constant in guarding their prayers.
This brazen disregard for the truth developed in the Jews because they had disintegrated God's book page by page. They used to call attention to certain teachings of God, while there were others which they deliberately omitted to mention. For example, they used repeatedly to listen to and recite all verses relating to rewards, while omitting those verses which mentioned the deeds which merited rewards. They used to make special mention of those verses from which they could draw support for the petty details of their politics, while ignoring the verses in which instructions were given about quiet reformation. They used to elaborate upon those verses which gave them the opportunity to display their verbal hair-splitting talents, while cursorily passing over verses in which the eternal realities of religion were set forth. Frequent public airings were given to such verses as gave an indication of their superiority, while verses in which their responsibilities were mentioned used to be neglected. In those who disintegrate God's book page by page in this way, the tendency to insolent bravado naturally develops. They indulge in frivolous and trivial discussions, then bicker and make contradictory statements. One cannot expect real cooperation from them. If people do not do justice to God's book, how can they be just while dealing with human beings? The call of religion is actually a call to awaken people. The caller, however perfect he may be, can be effective and make an impact on the listener's heart only when the listener has a fearing heart in his breast and considers the hereafter a matter of the utmost gravity. If these elementary qualities are not found in the listener, then the giver of the call cannot offer him any benefit.
Who can be more wicked than one who inventeth a lie against Allah, or saith, I have received inspiration, when he hath received none, or again who saith, I can reveal the like of what Allah hath revealed? If thou couldst but see how the wicked do fare in the flood of confusion at death. The angels stretch forth their hands, saying, Yield up your souls, this day shall ye receive your reward. a penalty of shame for that you used to tell lies against Allah and scornfully to reject of His signs.
When God chooses one of His subjects for the purpose of conveying His will to mankind, He blesses him with capability to do double work. A glimpse of the fear of the hereafter is seen in his character, the power of divine reasoning emerging in his talk. He is successful in discharging his task of conveying God's message in the best manner possible, even in the face of tremendous opposition. His whole existence is a sign of God in this world of God. But those who are lost in worldly glories are unable to understand the greatness of one who urges them to accept the realities of the hereafter. By their own worldly material standards, their own personality appears to them to be greater than that of God's messenger. This inclines them towards haughtiness or conceit, and from those of such a mentality, irrational behavior is to be expected.
And behold, ye come to us bare and alone as we created you for the first time. Ye have left behind you all the favors which we bestowed on you. We see not with you your intercessors whom ye thought to be partners in your affairs. So now all relations between you have been cut off, and your pet fancies have left you in the lurch.
This haughtiness which develops in a man is due to his worldly position and the material goods that are available to him in the world. He forgets that whatever blessings come his way are only for the purpose of testing him, and that too during a finite period. As soon as the time of death arrives, all these things will suddenly be snatched from him. Thereafter his will be a lone existence, just as it was at the time of his birth. Immediately after death man will reach that stage where he will have neither wealth nor position, where he will have neither his companions nor his intermediaries. There will be only God and himself. None of the things he was proud of in the world will be there to save him from God's scourge. Many people try to charm their way through life with the magic of words. Every man seeks and finds words to show his existence to be justified and righteous. He portrays the path he treads as straightway leading towards correct goals. But when the revolution of the hereafter unveils the realities, how utterly meaningless will his words appear.
It is Allah who causeth the seed, grain, and the date, stone to split and sprout. He causeth the living to issue from the dead, and He is the one to cause the dead to issue from the living. That is Allah. Then how are ye deluded away from the truth?
When anyone has to manufacture a motor car or any other such complex mechanism, he manufactures every part of it separately. Then he assembles these parts and gives them the requisite finish. But when God causes a tree to grow or creates a human being, the methodology is different. He produces the entity in its totality all at one time. In God's workshop, the whole tree or the whole man issues forth from the one seed or the one drop, and then proceeds to grow. This is a unique process which no human being can set in motion. This proves that there exists a being superior to the human being, a being whose plan is superior to all other plans.
He it is that cleaveth the day, break from the dark. He makes the night for rest and tranquility, and the sun and moon for the reckoning of time. Such is the judgment and ordering of Him, the exalted in power, the omniscient.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 97, for the Tafsir.
It is He who maketh the stars as beacons for you, that ye may guide yourselves, with their help, through the dark spaces of land and sea. We detail our signs for people who know.
The volume of the sun is 1.2 million times that of the earth, and the earth itself is 4 times larger than the moon. The moon is about 250,000 miles away from the earth and revolves around it. The earth is at a distance of about 95 million miles from the sun, and is moving round the latter in 2 ways, one in rotation on its axis and the other in orbit around the sun. Similarly, there is the revolution of other stars which are at vast distances from us and each other, but all moving with extreme regularity. Due to this system of the universe, day and night come into existence. Systems based on the measurement of time take shape. In turn, it becomes possible for man to regulate his life on land and sea. This gigantic system runs with such exactitude that no discrepancy has crept into it even after millions of years. This proves the immanence of the being whose powers are unlimited greatness. These large-scale signs of God show that the maker of this workshop is extremely knowledgeable. No ignorant being could erect such a complex structure. He is all-powerful. Otherwise, the running of this enormous workshop in this manner would not have been possible. Its planning is absolutely perfect. Without such planning, it would not have been possible to have such meaningfulness and harmony in such a colossal universe. God's world is full of His signs and arguments. But reasoning or argument is the name of theoretical reasoning and not that of a hammer. So acceptance of an argument by a man is possible only when he is really serious, i.e., when he is consciously ready to accept the argument, irrespective of whether it goes in his favor or against him.
It is he who hath produced you from a single person. Here is a place of sojourn and a place of departure. We detail our signs for people who understand.
Man-made workshops or factories are not capable of making a machine which can start giving birth to similar countless machines. Our factories have to manufacture such machines one after another. But in the workshop of God, such an event takes place every day. The seed of a tree is sown, and then generations of trees go on multiplying out of that simple, original seed. This is the case with human beings also. Starting with a man and a woman, billions and billions of human beings have started coming into existence, and there is no end to this process. This observation shows that the power of God, who created the universe, is limitless. He is capable of this rare feat of creation by which, primarily, one entity is brought into existence, and thereafter it continuously replicates itself in countless numbers. Similarly, God can create a great and perfect world out of this present world. The concept of the hereafter is not a far-fetched theory. Belief in it amounts to acceptance of the possible occurrence of certain future events on the strength of the present observation of similar events taking place every day.
It is he who sendeth down rain from the skies. With it we produce vegetation of all kinds. From some we produce green crops, out of which we produce grain. Heaped up at harvest, out of the date, palm and its sheaths or spades come clusters of dates hanging low and near. And then there are gardens of grapes, and olives, and pomegranates, each similar in kind yet different in variety. When they begin to bear fruit, feast your eyes with the fruit and the ripeness thereof. Behold! In these things there are signs for people who believe.
Earth, or mud, is apparently a dead and inert thing. Then rain falls on it. Soon after the absorption of water, a new lush green world springs out of the earth. Sundry varieties of crops and different kinds of fruit-bearing trees come forth from it. This event also is an example of the coming world after this world. As soon as water permeates the earth, the emergence of a fresh, beautiful, and fragrant carpet of colors from the earth indicates the potential which the Creator of the world has implanted here. The righteous deeds which a man performs in this world of today are on a parallel with this. When God's grace rains down, this potential will become a reality, flourishing and producing the burgeoning crops of the hereafter. Man, in the beginning, is nurtured in the womb of his mother, and thereafter makes his entry into the present world. The grave is also, so to say, a sort of womb, to which man is ultimately consigned. Thereafter he opens his eyes in another, future world, so that he may be sent to heaven or hell according to his deeds. Glimpses of and arguments in favor of the unseen hidden world, which man must necessarily accept, are already there in the present tangible and visible world. But only that person will accept it who is already mentally prepared to do so. It is only when a man has traveled half the distance along the path towards faith in man that it is possible for the call to the faith to enter freely into his mind and to be acceptable to him. Exhortations to believe in God will not in any way benefit a man who has been traveling in a direction opposite to that of faith.
They make the jinns equals with Allah, though Allah did create the jinns, and they falsely, having no knowledge, attribute to him sons and daughters. Praise and glory be to him, for he is above what they attribute to him.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 102 for the Tafsir.
To him is due the primal origin of the heavens and the earth. How can he have a son when he hath no consort? He created all things, and he hath full knowledge of all things.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 102 for the Tafsir.
That is Allah, your Lord. There is no God but He, the Creator of all things. Then worship ye Him, and He hath power to dispose of all affairs.
Since ancient times, it has been a weakness on the part of man to find some distinction or mysticism in a thing, and then to consider that thing to be a partner of God, and start worshipping it in order to seek its help or save himself from any harm it may do him. It was because of this mentality that many people started worshipping angels, stars, and jinns, though the clear proof of their not being gods is that they do not possess the capacity to create. They have neither created themselves, nor are they capable of creating any other thing. They were themselves created by some other being. So the question is, whether the Creator will be accepted as God, or his creatures will usurp the position of his Godhead. A tree receives the things it requires for its sustenance in perfect proportions. This is the condition of all things in the universe. When it is a fact that they receive things, whatever be their nature, because a giver gives them to them, then it naturally follows that the giver will be the one who is aware of all things at all times. If he were not aware of them, how could he fulfill the needs of every single thing exactly according to its requirements? Now, for what purpose should God, the possessor of such superlative attributes, take anybody as a partner in his Godhead?
No vision can grasp him, but his grasp is over all vision. He is above all comprehension, yet is acquainted with all things.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 104, for the Tafsir.
Now I'll call to you, for your Lord proveth, what will you right? If any will see, it will be for the good of the angel. If any will be blind, it will be to the harm. I am not here to watch over your doings.
Man wants to see God in a tangible shape, and when God does not manifest himself in this way, he presumes other tangible things to be gods, and thus satisfies his appearance-loving instinct. But this shows a very poor appreciation of God's being. After all, how can God, who is so great as to have created this gigantic universe with its highly regulated systems, be so ordinary as to present himself to a weak human creature in a form that will be visible to his eyes and touchable with his hands? Man must rather discover God through his heart and see him with the eye of his faith. Only one who is satisfied with observation through insight will discover God. One who insists on his being visible to the naked eye will never truly find God, just like the person who fails to recognize a flower by its fragrance and insists on referring to chemical standards.
Thus do we explain the signs by various symbols, that they may say, Thou hast taught us diligently, and that we may make the matter clear to those who know.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 106, for the Tafsir.
Follow what thou art taught by inspiration from thy Lord. There is no God but He, and turn aside from those who join gods with Allah.
There are some who have the urge to acquire knowledge and learn, who are in search of truth. There are others who have acquired wealth and power and consider themselves successful to the point of feeling that there is nothing lacking in them which needs to be compensated for. When the call of truth is given, it is mostly the former kind of people who accept it, unlike the latter who do not attach any significance to it. They never give it any serious thought, and therefore its importance does not become clear to them. The call of truth provides answers for those who earnestly go in quest of the truth, and gives those who are not so inclined a logical conclusion to their arguments. With regard to the former, the aim is to enable them to accept the truth. As for the others, it is meant to make them concede that at least the divine message had been conveyed to them in full.
If it had been Allah's plan, they would not have taken false gods, but we made thee not one to watch over their doings, nor art thou set over them to dispose of their affairs.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 108, for the Tafsir.
Revile not ye those whom they call upon besides Allah, lest they out of spite revile Allah in their ignorance. Thus have we made alluring to each people its own doings. In the end will they return to their Lord, and we shall then tell them the truth of all that they did.
Those who reject the divine message invent different excuses to justify their doing so. In these circumstances, it may occur to the preacher that he should change the way he conveys his message, so that it becomes acceptable to the addressees. But this would not be proper. He should adhere to the style which has been directly taught to him by God, because the real purpose of his activity is to link man with God, and not to win people over and draw them into his sphere by hook or by crook. On the other hand, neither is it proper to respond to the addressee's obduracy with abusive outbursts. The individual develops a bias in favor of the particular traditions to which he is born, or the kind of thinking with which he has become familiar. According to this, he develops a particular frame of mind which affects all his thinking process. This frame of mind presents the greatest impediment to the acceptance of truth. Unless it can be altered, that door of his mind, through which the voice of truth might enter, will never open.
They swear their strongest oaths by Allah, that if a special sign came to them, by it they would believe. Say, certainly all signs are in the power of Allah, but what will make you Muslims realize that even if special signs came, they will not believe?
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 110, for the Tafsir.
They too shall turn to confusion their hearts and their eyes, even as they refuse to believe in this in the first instance. We shall leave them in their trespasses to wander in distraction.
The truth may be laid before a man with all its supporting arguments, and he will still reject it. There is just one reason for this, i.e. his looking at things perversely instead of looking at them in a straightforward manner. An argument may be most rational and based on sound reasoning, but if one is not inclined to accept it, he will find some words or the other to reject it. For example, instead of viewing the arguments of a preacher as definitive, he will start discussing whether all the previous great men were all wrong and strangers to the truth, and will go on to raise other similar points. It is extremely difficult for one who has developed such a temperament to arrive at the right path. He can give the wrong color to any subject and seek an excuse to reject it. In order to contradict theoretical arguments, he will find the excuse that they were against the creed of his ancestors. Similarly, in order to allege the falsity of physical observations, he will voice the opinion that they are optical illusions or mere conjuring tricks. This attitude, which impedes the acceptance of theoretical arguments, will likewise obstruct the acceptance of physical facts in support of the truth. One who is determined to remain unreceptive to the truth will, as always, have to go without guidance. Such deniers are arrogant in nature. They want to see themselves set above others at any cost. When a preacher appears before them with a message of truth, it frequently happens that he is a stranger in those surroundings and has none of the elegant trappings of the times. So, forming any connection with him amounts to degrading one's position. Those with a superiority complex are therefore unable to accept him. Offering a variety of excuses, they reject him.
Even if we did send unto them angels, and the dead did speak unto them, and we gathered together all things before their very eyes, they are not the ones to believe, unless it is in Allah's plan. But most of them ignore the truth.
Wisdom lies in man's acceptance of God's plan, and in preparing himself to regulate his mind according to that plan. Conversely, it would be foolish for a man to have a self-made standard instead of God's plan, and to maintain that he will accept anything which conforms to that standard and will reject anything which does not. For such a man there is nothing but perdition in this world. In this world of God, man can reach his goal only by adopting the ways laid down by God, not by departing from them.
Likewise did we make for every messenger an enemy, evil ones among men and jinns, inspiring each other with flowery discourses by way of deception. If thy Lord had so planned, they would not have done it, so leave them and their inventions alone.
Ibn Jarir has quoted Abu Dihar al-Ghifari as saying, I attended a meeting of the Prophet Muhammad. It was a long meeting. He asked me, O Abu Dihar, have you said your prayers? I replied, No, O Prophet of God. He said, Get up and offer salah of 2 rakat. Thereupon, I offered salah and joined the meeting again. Then he, the Prophet, asked, O Abu Dihar, did you seek the protection of God against the Satans among human beings and jinns? I replied, No, O Prophet of God. Are there Satans among human beings also? The Prophet said, Yes, those Satans are worse than those among the jinns. Ibn Kathir, Tafsir, here, Satans among human beings refers to those people who have attained respectability and popularity on the basis of self-made religion, and who will stop at nothing to disprove the call of truth. When the call of the truth is given in its purest form, they feel that they are being stripped of all protection. The straight path for them would have been to accept the truth on its being clarified. But compared to acceptance of the truth, their position is dear to them. To save their position, they set about proving the dubiousness of the preacher and his call. They make allegations that are themselves baseless, but because they express themselves so beautifully, many people are influenced and are filled with doubt.
Such deceit let the hearts of those incline, who have no faith in the hereafter, let them delight in it, and let them earn from it what they may.
If a preacher of truth can present the truth in the language of rational arguments, the proponents of falsehood may also utter such beautiful words against the truth as could appear to be valid arguments in its disfavor. Both liars and tellers of the truth having at their command the same range of plausible expressions with which to support their arguments creates a situation in which man is put to the test. He must at all events pass the test of being able to distinguish between true and false arguments, and then accept true arguments, having rejected whatever is baseless. This state of affairs will necessarily continue till doomsday. The Satans among human beings misuse their intelligence to deceive others, but only those who have no fears about the hereafter are influenced by them. Anxiety about the hereafter makes a man serious, and the reality of things can never remain hidden from one who sincerely serves God. But those who are devoid of any cares about the hereafter are not serious about truth, and as such, they are unable to understand the difference between solid argument and triviality.
Say, shall I seek for judge other than Allah? When he it is who hath sent unto you the book, explained in detail. They know full well, to whom we have given the book, that it hath been sent down from thy Lord in truth. Never be then of those who doubt.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 115 for the Tafsir.
The word of thy Lord to find its fulfillment in truth and in justice. None can change his words, for he is the one who heareth and knoweth all.
Rules about the sacrifice of animals were given in the Quran, it being specified where sacrificed animals might be eaten. There was also a ban on eating animals which had died of natural or other causes. On this some people commented, "The religion of Muslims is strange. They consider animals sacrificed by their hands as permitted and consider dead animals, i.e. those killed by God, as prohibited." In this statement there is no argument, only verbal gymnastics. But many people were deceived by it and started looking at Islam with suspicion. This always happens. In every age there are only a few people who can place matters in their true perspective. Many people become lost in a verbal labyrinth. They take illusory things to be real, only because these are described in beautiful words. But this is a world in which God has made himself clear about all basic realities. So, going astray on the pretext of ignorance is not pardonable. God's discourse is a clear touchstone by which every man can test all statements and ascertain whether they are mere verbal tricks or are based on facts. God has made true statements about all the essential matters of the past, present, and future. He has shown the way of perfect justice in regard to all aspects of human relations. If a man is really serious, it is not at all difficult for him to know what is right and what is wrong. Only those whose thinking processes work under the influence of something other than God's revelation will have doubts. For one who brings his thinking in line with divine realities, there is no possibility of deviance of thought. Even after this divine explanation, if a man goes astray, God knows his condition very well. He knows that person who, in order to maintain his status, attaches no significance to any reality beyond himself, that person whose bias has deprived him of any capacity to understand godly matters, that person who, due to his inclination for cheap display, pays no attention to the voice of truth, that person who, being a prey to feelings of jealousy, remains a stranger to the truth.
Or doubt to follow the common run of those on earth, they will lead thee away from the way of Allah. They follow nothing but conjecture, they do nothing but lie.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 119 for the Tafsir.
Thy Lord knoweth best who strayeth from his way, he knoweth best who they are that receive his guidance.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 119 for the Tafsir.
So eat of meats on which Allah's name hath been pronounced, if ye have faith in his signs.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 119 for the Tafsir.
Why should ye not eat of meats on which Allah's name hath been pronounced, when he hath explained to you in detail what is forbidden to you, except under compulsion of necessity? But many do mislead men by their appetites and checked by knowledge. Thy Lord knoweth best those who transgress.
Whatever there is in the world is all others' property for us, because all of it belongs to God. We have no right to possess or use anything unless it is obtained and utilized in the manner shown by God. This holds good for animals also. Animals provide valuable food for us, but the question arises as to how we acquired the right to use them as food. God creates animals, and He alone rears them and brings them to maturity. Then, how does it become permissible for us to use them as our food? Taking God's name at the time of sacrificing an animal is the answer to this very question. But the taking of God's name is not a verbal formality. It is, in fact, the recognition of God's ownership rights over the animal and a demonstration of our gratitude to Him for His gift. Taking God's name at the time of sacrifice is the symbol of this admission and of our gratitude, the price on payment of which an animal, in the eyes of our Lord, becomes sacrificable for us. However, one who faces accidental compulsion has been exempted by God from this restriction. When man neglects God's commands on the subject of what is permitted or prohibited, legal or illegal, superstitions begin to take the place of divine injunctions. On the basis of superstitious ideas, people form divergent opinions. There are some self-devised philosophies behind these superstitions, and on their basis some formalities become established. It is necessary for those who want to become God's obedient servants to completely give up these superstitions, in practice as well as in theory.
You all sin, open or secret, those who earn sin will get due recompense for their earnings.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 121 for the Tafsir.
Eat not of meats on which Allah's name hath not been pronounced, that would be impiety. But the evil ones ever inspire their friends to contend with you. If you were to obey them, you would indeed be pagans.
In the matter of eating and drinking and other everyday routines, every community develops a customary religion. People have strong feelings about this customary or traditional religion because of the testimonies of ancestors and of great men of the past, which exist in its support. Deviation from this becomes synonymous with turning away from the religion of the revered forefathers. So, when the call of truth clashes with this customary religion, all sorts of objections are raised against it. The great men of the day seek out such aspects of established practices as will convince the general public that their customary religion is correct and the new religion is wrong. But God is aware of everything. On doomsday, when He lays bare the realities, every individual will see whether he has been standing on the firm ground of reality or on the thin ice of superstition.
Can he who is dead, to whom we gave life, and a light whereby he can walk amongst men, be like him who is in the depths of darkness, from which he can never come out? Thus to those without faith their own deeds seem pleasing.
See Surah Al-An'am Ayah 123 for the Tafsir.
Thus have we placed leaders in every town, its wicked men, to plot and burrow therein, but they only plot against their own souls, and they perceive it not.
In the eyes of God, that person has life who accepts the light of guidance which appears before him and makes it the illumination of his path. Conversely, that person is lifeless who remains deprived of the light of guidance and roams about groping in the darkness of falsehood. The lifeless person is one who is so caught up in the net of superstitions and prejudice that true, straight facts do not fall within the scope of his understanding. He is so unaware of the true nature of things that he is unable to distinguish between meaningless argument and real discourse. He is so engrossed in self-aggrandizement that it is not possible for him to accept the truth coming from any source other than that of tradition. Customary and traditional ideas so dominate his mind that he is unable to assess things by any other standard. Due to these weaknesses, he is left groping in the dark. Though apparently alive, he becomes virtually a dead person. In direct contrast to this, one who opens his heart to guidance becomes free of all psychological knots. It takes him no time at all to recognize the truth. The veils of words fail to hide the face of reality from his eyes. The problems of taste and habit do not attain such a position in his life as to come between the truth and himself. Truth becomes a bright reality for him. His gaze does not falter looking at it, and he does not remain indolent once he has discovered it. He himself treads the path of light and endeavors to make others walk in that light.
When there comes to them a sign from Allah, they say, "We shall not believe until we receive one exactly like those received by Allah's messengers." Allah knoweth best where and how to carry out His mission. Soon will the wicked be overtaken by humiliation before Allah and a severe punishment for all their plots.
Those who have captured public attention by claiming self-made things to be God's religion become inimical toward every voice which calls upon people to adhere to true religion. Every such voice appears to them to be a no-confidence motion directed against themselves. The luminaries of the time then ferret out trivial points by which to defame the call of truth, so as to prevent the general public from being influenced by it. They give wrong direction to the reasoning of truth and cause the public to become doubtful. They even try to denigrate the personality of the preacher by casting baseless aspersions on him. But such efforts only increase their guilt. They are unable to harm the preacher and his call in any way. The righteous person is one who sees the truth, even when worldly glories have not graced it. Accepting the truth when it is surrounded by worldly glories amounts to accepting the worldly glories and not the truth.
Those whom Allah in His plan willeth to guide, He openeth their breast to Islam. Those whom He willeth to leave straying, He maketh their breasts close and constricted, as if they had to climb up to the skies. Thus doth Allah heap the penalty on those who refuse to believe.
See Surah Al-An'am Ayah 127 for the Tafsir.
This is the way of thy Lord, leading straight. We have detailed the signs for those who receive admonition.
See Surah Al-An'am Ayah 127 for the Tafsir.
For them will be a home of peace in the presence of their Lord. He will be their friend, because they practiced righteousness.
Truth by its very nature is so clear that it is not difficult for anyone to understand it. Still, in every age, in spite of the truth being made clear, countless people do not accept it. This is due to a flawed mentality. One person attaches himself to holy beings to the extent that he fears that leaving them will completely destroy him. In the case of another, the fear of the breakdown of the system of his worldly interests is so strong within him that it becomes impossible for him to proceed towards the truth. Yet another feels that if he accepts anything against the established custom of the time, he might become a stranger to the whole atmosphere of his own society. Man is overcome by such thoughts to the extent that acceptance of truth appears synonymous with climbing a steep and difficult slope, and simply by looking at it, he loses heart. The case of individuals who do not suffer from any psychological complications is entirely different. They place truth higher than everything else. They are seekers of the truth right from the very beginning. So, when the truth appears before them, they recognize it without delay, and ignoring all excuses and suspicions, they accept it. God reveals His truth before the people in the shape of signs and symbols. Now, those who have weaknesses in their hearts make self-made interpretations of these signs to justify their rejection of them, whereas those who have open hearts discover in these signs their real depth and make them the nourishment of their minds. Their lives are immediately launched on that straight path which is traversed under the direct guidance of God, and which leads a man to enduring success. What God values above all else is a man's good deeds. One who obeys God will deserve God's help and will be led to his abode of peace. This abode of peace is God's paradise, where man will lead a life of eternal peace, secure from every kind of grief or trouble. God's help will be given to individuals in the life after death according to their deeds. Moreover, if a considerable number of people become obedient to God in the world, this group will be given a share of God's grace in this world also.
One day will He gather them all together, and say, O ye assembly of jinns, much toll did ye take of men. Their friends amongst men will say, Our Lord, we made profit from each other, but alas, we reached our term, which thou didst appoint for us. He will say, The fire be your dwelling place, you will dwell therein forever, except as Allah willeth. For thy Lord is full of wisdom and knowledge.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 129 for the Tafsir.
Thus do we make the wrong-doers turn to each other because of what they earn.
If someone is misled by another, it is not a one-sided affair. Both the individuals for their part think that they are fulfilling some purpose. When Satan deceives a man and wins him over to his side, he tries to fulfill his challenge to God at the beginning of creation, that he would make a large part of God's creation fall a prey to his temptations. 17:61. Those who surrender themselves to Satan have definite self-interests in mind. There are some who promote their business dealings through magic in the name of jinn, or connect their poetry or charms with some jinn master and thus establish superiority over the general public. Similarly, the supporters of all such movements as rise under satanic inducements extend their support to them because they expect that in this way they can easily establish their leadership in society. Satanic slogans, as compared to the divine call, have always proved to be more attractive to the general masses.
O ye assembly of jinns and men! Came there not unto you messengers from amongst you, setting forth unto you my signs, and warning you of the meeting of this day of yours? They will say, We bear witness against ourselves. It was the life of this world that deceived them. So against themselves will they bear witness that they rejected faith.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 131 for the Tafsir.
The messengers were sent thus, for thy Lord would not destroy for their wrong-doing men's habitations whilst their occupants were unwarned.
On Doomsday, when the veil is torn from reality, it will be clear that those who had gone astray, or had misguided others, did not do so because of any misunderstanding. The reason for this was not their being unaware of the truth, but their deliberately ignoring it. They could not rise above worldly pomp and show. They could not forego timely benefits. The guidance provided by God through His special subjects was so clear that nobody could have remained unaware of realities. But their worship of the world drew a veil over their eyes. In spite of knowing, they became unaware. In spite of listening, they did not hear. In the hereafter, they will be shorn of the artificial supports on the strength of which they had remained careless of the truth. Then it will be pointed out how the truth had appeared before them and how they had rejected it with the help of false words. How, though their mistake had been explained to them, they still thought that they had been successful in justifying their stand by clever misrepresentations.
To all are degrees or ranks according to their deeds, for thy Lord is not unmindful of anything that they do.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 135 for the Tafsir.
Thy Lord is self-sufficient, full of mercy. If it were His will, He could destroy you, and in your place appoint whom He will as your successors, even as He raised you up from the posterity of other people.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 135 for the Tafsir.
All that hath been promised unto you will come to pass, nor can ye frustrate it in the least bit.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 135 for the Tafsir.
Say, O my people, do whatever ye can, I will do my part, soon will ye know who it is whose end will be best in the hereafter, certain it is that the wrong doers will not prosper.
In the life of this world, we see that there is a difference between the status of one man and another. This difference is exactly in proportion to the efforts made and the struggle engaged in by each of them. A man's wisdom, his diligence, and accommodation of interests will determine the degree of his success in this life. The same state of affairs exists in the case of the hereafter. In the hereafter also, the award of status will relate exactly to the deeds performed by human beings in the world. A man has to spend time and money on the hereafter also, just as he spends time and money on the world. In the matter of the hereafter, too, he has to behave wisely, as he has been behaving in the world. He has to look after his interests and take care of delicate situations, just as he had been doing in the world. God, in whose hands lies the power of taking decisions in the hereafter, is fully aware of the condition of each and every individual. It will not be difficult for him to give everyone whatever he is entitled to. Through this world of trial which God has created, he has opened the door to immense and valuable possibilities for man, who by performing good deeds in the short temporary life of this world can earn superlative rewards in the eternal life of the hereafter. There is no benefit to God in this system. If the present generation does not accept God's creation plan, he can raise in their place others who will accept his creation plan and enlist themselves in its support. Even the sands of the desert and the leaves of the trees can be raised by him as his faithful subjects. In a world based entirely on truth and justice, the fact that freedom is enjoyed by tyrants and arrogant people as well as virtuous people, in itself proves that this freedom is not by way of reward but by way of trial. One who refuses to accept the truth and still does not apparently lose anything should not brag about his apparent good fortune, for this condition is purely temporary. Very soon the time will come when everything on the strength of which he behaved with arrogance will be taken away from him, and he will be pushed towards eternal destruction, from which he will never be able to emerge, and where he will have the opportunity neither to perform good deeds nor to save himself from the final result of his misdeeds.
Out of what Allah hath produced in abundance in tilth and in cattle, they assigned him a share, they say, according to their fancies, this is for Allah, and this for our partners. But the share of their partners reacheth not Allah, whilst the share of Allah reacheth their partners. Evil and unjust is their assignment.
Man invents tangible deities, because he does not have full faith in the intangible Supreme Being, God. In ancient times, polytheists did, however, pay lip service to God, while reserving their real faith for their deities. This was evident from the inequitable way in which they apportioned their sacrificial offerings of grain and livestock to their deities on the one hand, and to God on the other. It was always the deities who were given preference in terms of the quantity and quality of the offerings, and never God. Moreover, when those who in reality are idolaters are worshipping God, they devote a part of their prayers to that person, living or dead, whom they idolize. But when they worship the latter, they do not even mention the name of God. They will readily lavish upon a partner that ecstatic devotion which they should reserve for God. In any meeting held to extol God's greatness, the majesty and glory of the partner will somehow find a place, but in any meeting held to describe the greatness of the partner, there will be absolutely no mention of the majesty and glory of God. The importance of the partner sometimes dominates minds to such an extent that a man will with pleasure sacrifice even his children for it, something which he will not do for the sake of God. All such acts are carried out in the name of God's religion, but falsely so, because this amounts to attributing to God such precepts as had never been laid down by him.
Even so, in the eyes of most of the pagans, their partners made alluring the slaughter of their children, in order to lead them to their own destruction and cause confusion in their religion. If Allah had willed, they would not have done so, but leave alone them and their inventions.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 139 for the Tafsir.
And they say that such and such cattle and crops are taboo, and none should eat of them except those whom, so they say, we wish. Further, there are cattle forbidden to yoke or burden, and cattle on which, at slaughter, the name of Allah is not pronounced, inventions against Allah's name, soon will he requite them for their inventions.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 139 for the Tafsir.
They say, what is in the wombs of such and such cattle is specially reserved for food for our men and forbidden to our women, but if it is still born, then all have share therein. For their false attribution of superstitions to Allah, He will soon punish them, for He is full of wisdom and knowledge.
In ancient times, the people of Arabia used to attribute their religion to Abraham and Ishmael. But in practice, the religion prevalent there was a self-made one, which their leaders had invented and introduced among them. The offering of their produce and cattle made in the name of God and His alleged partners were subject to strict restrictions of their own conception. For instance, if a freed animal was sacrificed, and if a live offspring came out of its womb, then it was held that its meat could be eaten only by males, and should not be eaten by females, whereas if the offspring was a dead one, it could be eaten by both males and females. Similarly, it was forbidden to ride on the back of certain animals or to place loads on them. In respect of some animals, it was their belief that God's name should not be taken while riding, slaughtering, or milking them. Such people are far removed from the real requirements of religion, i.e. the human being's devotion to God and his concern about the hereafter. Every day they go beyond the limits fixed by God, but take care to strictly observe rules about irrelevant matters of minor importance. This is one of Satan's complex strategies. He alienates people from their real religion by introducing unrelated matters among them in the name of religion. By creating a tendency to extremism in them, he instills the misunderstanding in man that he, the latter, is steadfast in God's religion. Extremism in the outer formalities of prayers is the special product of this psychology. A man devoid of sincerity and humility pays meticulous attention to externals, imagining that he has performed the act of prayer to the utmost perfection.
Lost are those who slay their children from folly, without knowledge, and forbid food which Allah hath provided for them, inventing lies against Allah. They have indeed gone astray and heeded no guidance.
How misguided such people are is clear from the fact that many of them thought the savage act of killing one's own progeny was quite proper. Such misapprehensions deprive people of the clear provisions made by God, so that while fighting over ordinary problems, they overlook matters which are of greater importance, but which might still be understood by the use of common sense.
It is He who produceth gardens, with trellises and without, and dates, and tilth with produce of all kinds, and olives and pomegranates, similar in kind and different in variety. Eat of their fruit in their season, but render the dues that are proper on the day that the harvest is gathered. But waste not by excess, for Allah loveth not the wasters.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 142 for the Tafsir.
Of the cattle are some for burden and some for meat. Eat what Allah hath provided for you, and follow not the footsteps of Satan, for he is to you an avowed enemy.
God has created different types of food for man, some spreading out over the ground, like melons and leafy vegetables, some growing on climbing plants like the grapes on the vine, and some growing high up in the trees, like dates and mangoes. Similarly, different kinds of animals, both big and small, have been created to fulfill the needs of man. For example, camels, horses, sheep, and goats. Man, the birds and animals and all the green, growing things have come into existence quite independently of each other. But man sees that there is a strong harmony between himself and all the rest of God's creations. If a man's body needs nourishment, then outside, on the green trees, wonderful food packets are hanging. If his palate yearns for something delicious to eat, he has only to pluck fruits and then eat them. If his eyes have an aesthetic longing for scenic beauty, then the entire background of nature presents a panorama of scenic beauty and charm. If he needs to eat, ride, or dispatch goods, then such animals are available here as can serve his transport needs as well as provide him with valuable food. In this way, the entire existence of the universe has become a proclamation of the unity of God, because this uniformity observed in the various phenomena of the universe would not be possible unless its Creator and Lord were one. When a man sees that this great universal provision for him has been arranged without his necessarily deserving it, his heart is filled with gratitude for this freely given blessing. In consequence, this whole matter becomes nourishment for man's God-fearing instinct, or piety, taqwa. It is the rule of nature that every privilege be accompanied by responsibility. This reminds man of reward and punishment, and induces him to live in this world with the active realization that one day he has to appear before God to give an account of himself. If these feelings really take hold of a man, then of necessity, two tendencies will develop in him. One is whatever he receives to appreciate that his Lord has a hand in it, and the other is to spend strictly according to his needs, and not in excess of this or without occasion. But what Satan does is to divert a man's mind from the right direction and enmesh it in diverse irrelevant matters.
Take 8 head of cattle and 4 pairs, of sheep a pair, and of goats a pair. Say, hath he forbidden the 2 males, or the 2 females, or the young which the wombs of the 2 females enclose? Tell me with knowledge if ye are truthful.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 144 for the Tafsir.
Camels a pair, and oxen a pair. Say, hath he forbidden the 2 males, or the 2 females, or the young which the wombs of the 2 females enclose? Were ye present when Allah ordered you such a thing? But who doth more wrong than one who invents a lie against Allah, to lead astray men without knowledge? For Allah guideth not people who do wrong.
By nature, there is in man the consciousness of God, and the realization of what is permitted and what is forbidden. Man, in pursuance of his internal urge, wants to make a supreme being his God and wants to distinguish between permitted and forbidden things. Satan knows this fact very well. He knows that if a man is allowed to go his own way, under normal conditions, he will adopt the straight path of nature. So, in order to blunt man's natural instinct, he introduces different types of false customs. In the name of God, he invents some imaginary gods. In the name of what is permitted and forbidden, he devises some baseless prohibition. In this way, Satan tries to entangle man in these imaginary matters, so that he should not arrive at the real truth, but stray from the right path. Then, seeing himself apparently progressing, he should think that he is on the right path, even though it might be a crooked line, and not the straight right path. Those who fall a victim to Satan's misleading are transgressors in the eyes of God. God had given them the understanding by which they could have differentiated between truth and falsehood. But their prejudices warped their minds, and, in spite of having the capacity to understand, they remain far removed from the truth.
Say, I find not in the message received by me by inspiration any meat forbidden to be eaten by one who wishes to eat it, unless it be dead meat, or blood poured forth, or the flesh of swine, for it is an abomination, or, what is impious, meat on which a name has been invoked, other than Allah's. But even so, if a person is forced by necessity, without willful disobedience, nor transgressing due limits, thy Lord is oft forgiving, most merciful.
Among the animals reared by the Arabs for the sake of their meat and milk, etc., 4 kinds were very well known: sheep, goats, camels, and cows. With reference to them, they had framed different types of prohibitory regulations, but they had no authority to back these up save their polytheistic customs. The banning of the meat of the sheep, goat, camel, or cow, whether male or female, has no rationality in it. All the meat on them is the best food for man. They do not even have any dirty habits which could make them undesirable for human consumption. Even in the teachings coming down from heaven, there is no mention of their being forbidden. Then, why does it happen that different types of restrictive regulations gain currency? The reason for this is satanic inducements.
For those who followed the Jewish law, we forbade every animal with undivided hoof, and we forbade them that fat of the ox and the sheep, except what adheres to their backs or their entrails, or is mixed up with a bone, this in recompense for their willful disobedience, for we are true in our ordinances.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 147, for the Tafsir.
If they accuse thee of falsehood, say, your Lord is full of mercy all, embracing, but from people in guilt never will his wrath be turned back.
According to the divine Sharia, Islamic regulations, the truly forbidden things have always been the same as mentioned in the foregoing verse, viz. Carrion, outpouring blood, the meat of pigs and animals slaughtered in the name of anything or being other than God. Anything else which is forbidden falls into a subgroup of the above, mentioned as a matter of detail. But along with this, among God's prohibitory laws, another principle is at work, namely that when a community blessed with his book adopts the way of arrogance instead of obedience, it is subjected to new difficulties by way of punishment, i.e. such things as were not originally forbidden them in the divine Sharia are now banned. One way in which this change comes about is that in such a community, leaders arise who are completely ignorant of the reality of the religion. They are conversant only with its outward formalities. The meticulousness which they should apply to the meaningful realities of religion is reserved by them for outward formalities and rites. The result is that unnecessary hair-splitting over externals becomes a set pattern in religion. Such leaders devise self-the outward standards of religion. By a process of extreme exaggeration, they make a simple commandment complicated and a legitimate thing unlawful. For instance, when arrogance set in among the Jews, certain scholars arose among them who, by their hair-splitting arguments, made the rule that for an animal to be deemed fit to eat, it should possess two qualities: one, that its hooves should be cloven or divided, and second, that it should be a cut-chewing animal. Even if one of these conditions was not fulfilled, that animal, according to them, was forbidden. Due to this self-imposed condition, even animals like the camel and the rabbit, etc., were unnecessarily banned. Similarly, by taking up an extreme position about the importance attached to claws, they unnecessarily placed ostriches, swans, and ducks in the forbidden category. These unnatural restrictions narrowed their lives, whereas God had intended to give them wider latitude. After rejecting the truth, man is not immediately seized upon by God. He finds himself free and his life as full as before. For this reason, he erroneously imagines that he is not going to lose anything by not accepting the truth. He forgets that if he remains safe, it is simply because of the merciful forbearance of God. In spite of man's arrogance, God gives him the opportunity to redeem himself till the very last moment. Finally, when he has not changed his behavior, all of a sudden God swoops down on him, sometimes in this world and sometimes both in this world and the hereafter.
Those who give partners to Allah will say, if Allah had wished, we should not have given partners to him, nor would our fathers, nor should we have had any taboos. So did their ancestors argue falsely, until they tasted of our wrath. Say, have ye any certain knowledge? If so, produce it before us. You follow nothing but conjecture, you do nothing but lie.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 149, for the Tafsir.
Say, with Allah is the argument that reaches home. If it had been His will, He could indeed have guided you all.
The unadulterated missionary call for truth always stands out as something rather strange. On the one hand, there is the customary religion which enjoys prominence in all social institutions. Centuries of traditions are behind it to lend it weight. On the other hand, there is the call for truth, which has no time-honored conventions in its favor. It is difficult, therefore, for people to understand that customary religion, which has such an elevated status and great popularity, will not be to God's liking. The common presumption is that it has been possible for the customary religion to flourish to this extent because it suited God's will and pleasure. Had it not been so, it would not have spread and endured to this extent. They raise the question of whether God's favored religion will be one already enjoying a high status everywhere in this world of God, or one which has no standing whatsoever.
Say, bring forward your witnesses to prove that Allah did forbid so and so. If they bring such witnesses, be not thou amongst them, nor follow thou the vain desires of such as treat our signs as falsehoods, and such as believe not in the hereafter, for they hold others as equal with their guardian, Lord.
God has made this world like one great examination hall, in which He has left it up to man to do well or badly in the questions of right and wrong. Of course, differentiating between truth and falsehood should always be based on real reasoning and not on conjecture or on references to popular custom. But man is not bound to opt for the path of logic, for instead of forcibly imposing His will on man, God adopted the method of teaching man about what is right or what is wrong and left it to him to tread the right or the wrong path. This means that in the life of the world, argument, reasoning is God's representative. When a man bows before correct or sound argument, it is as if he is bowing down before God, and when he refuses to do so, it is as if he is rejecting God. The reason why a man does not accede to reasoning is that he is unable to rise above his desires. In order to justify his actions, he is prepared to declare falsehood to be truth. His recklessness goes to the extent of ignoring God's signs. He becomes careless of the fact that finally God is going to have him in His grasp and gives to other things the importance which he should give to God alone.
Whether open or secret, take not life, which Allah hath made sacred, except by way of justice and law. Thus doth He command you, that ye may learn wisdom.
In the name of divine restrictions, people introduce different types of formal and outward restrictions, and by paying particular attention to these formalities, they feel satisfied that they have completely fulfilled their duty to God. But the regulations that God requires man to obey are real and substantial, and are not just formal rights. The first requirement is that man should accept this as God, the one and only God. The greatness of anybody except him should not dominate his mind. He should not have faith in anybody except him. He should not entertain hopes of anybody except him. He should not be afraid of anybody except him, and he should not feel intense love for anybody except him. If an individual's parents are weak and needy, while he is strong, and if he treats them well, this is not the outcome of self-interest but of righteousness. In this way, the question of discharging the rights of parents becomes the first test of a man's adoption of God's religion, not just at the level of mere talk, but as a matter of practical action. If he places emphasis on the parents' rights rather than on their weakness, if his love for his friends and his wife and children does not take him away from his parents, he has, as it were, given the first proof that his behavior will be subject to principles and regard for rights, and not to self-interest and self-consideration. But there are many who, out of greed, act oppressively, in that they do not allow God-created provision to reach all of God's subjects in the proper manner. Then, when the artificially created problems of scarcity of essential commodities arise, they take the lives of unborn children. All such action amounts to negating God's system of provision. Moreover, there are many wrongs that are so lewd in nature that no special knowledge is required to understand their evil. A man's nature and his conscience are enough to indicate that it is not proper for such acts to be perpetrated upon anyone. Under these circumstances, if someone indulges in acts of shamelessness, he proves, as it were, that he is devoid of even the most rudimentary humanity. Every human being's life is sacred. It is not legitimate to take the life of any man unless he commit a crime in terms of the Creator's law, in which case it would be legitimate to take his life on the fulfillment of certain conditions. All these things are so clear that no one who exercises his mind could fail to realize this.
And come not nigh to the orphan's property, except to improve it, until he attain the age of full strength. Give measure and weight with full justice. No burden do we place on any soul, but that which it can bear. Whenever ye speak, speak justly, even if a near relative is concerned, and fulfill the covenant of Allah. Thus doth he command you, that ye may remember.
With the advent of the explosion of doomsday, all hidden realities will reveal themselves to the people. At that time, man will be compelled to accept God and act only at his behest, but acceptance at that time will have no value. Only that acceptance is real acceptance, which takes place at the stage of the Almighty still being unseen. True faith lies in accepting, without seeing, that which one is compelled to accept after seeing. One who accepts after seeing has, as it were, not accepted at all.
Verily, this is my way, leading straight. Follow it, follow not other paths. They will scatter you about from his great path. Thus doth he command you that ye may be righteous.
The orphan is the least likely to receive good treatment, because he is the weakest member of any society. In his case, any of the factors which would predispose an individual to behave well towards others are unlikely to come into play. Shouldering responsibility in the case of an orphan can be done only by one who has become a man of character purely out of principle and not on the basis of self-interest. Such a person who is the well-wisher of an orphan will also give exceptionally good treatment to other people. All things in the universe are so interrelated as to ensure that giving and taking are done on an equitable basis and are mutually beneficial. This very principle has to be adopted by man in his life. If an individual has to measure out something for others, he should measure it out properly, and if he has to weigh out something, he should weigh it out properly. It should never happen that he uses one scale for himself and a different scale for others. It happens from time to time that a man is required to express an opinion against somebody. On such occasions, the way to win God's approval is to utter such views as meet the standards of justice. Whether the person in question is one of his own or a stranger, whether his relations with him are friendly or inimical, whether or not his interests are linked with him, he should remain uninfluenced by all these factors, and should say only what is right and proper. Every man is bound by certain vows. Some are in writing and others are purely verbal. But a man's faith, his humanity, and his nobility demand that right action should be taken in the fulfillment of pledges of any form. The Muslim is duty-bound to fulfill both the written and the verbal kind. All this is very clear. Heavenly revelation and man's mind both bear testimony to this being proper. But only that person will learn a lesson from divine revelation who himself wants to learn. These commandments, verses 151-53, are basic sections of the divine Sharia. To follow these within their strict and direct meaning is in fact to follow the straight highway of God. But if by means of hair-splitting, different byways are introduced, and if all emphasis is laid on them, this amounts to going astray on various paths, other than the straight highway, which will never lead a man towards God.
Moreover, we gave Moses the book, completing our favor to those who would do right and explaining all things in detail, and a guide and a mercy, that they might believe in the meeting with their Lord.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 157, for the Tafsir.
And this is a book which we have revealed as a blessing, so follow it and be righteous, that ye may receive mercy.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 157, for the Tafsir.
Lest ye should say, the book was sent down to two peoples before us, and for our part, we remained unacquainted with all that they learned by assiduous study.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 157, for the Tafsir.
Or lest ye should say, if the book had only been sent down to us, we should have followed its guidance better than they. Now then hath come unto you a clear sign from your Lord, and a guide and a mercy. Then who could do more wrong than one who rejecteth Allah's signs, and turneth away therefrom? In good time shall we requite those who turn away from our signs with a dreadful penalty for their turning away.
The book, which is revealed on behalf of God, contains many details, but its purpose is but one, and that is that man should firmly believe that he has to face God. In other words, he should spend life in the world in such a way that he should always treat himself as being answerable to God for his each and every action. His life should be a responsible life, and not a free and unrestricted life. This was the purpose of previous books, and this is likewise the aim of the Qur'an. God has given full freedom to human beings, while keeping the rest of the world under his direct orders and subject to his regulation. The method devised by him for human guidance is to make people aware of truth and falsehood through the prophets as well as his books, which are couched in the language of reason. In the world, God's will appears before the people in the shape of reasoning. Here, acceptance of this reasoning means acceptance of God, and rejection of this reasoning amounts to rejection of God.
Are they waiting to see if the angels come to them, or thy Lord himself, or certain of the signs of thy Lord? The day that certain of the signs of thy Lord do come, no good will it do to his soul to believe in them then if it believed not before nor earned righteousness through its faith. Say, wait ye, we too are waiting.
With the advent of the explosion of doomsday, all hidden realities will reveal themselves to the people. At that time, man will be compelled to accept God and act only at his behest. But acceptance at that time will have no value. Only that acceptance is real acceptance which takes place at the stage of the Almighty still being unseen. True faith lies in accepting, without seeing, that which one is compelled to accept after seeing. One who accepts after seeing has, as it were, not accepted at all. If those enjoying the power to choose today make themselves subject to God's will, they will be rewarded by God with paradise. But if they bow down before God only after the arrival of doomsday, their bowing down will amount to proving their guilt with more force. This will mean that, by their own admission, they did not accept something which was really worth accepting. They did not perform such tasks as were really worth performing.
As for those who divide their religion and break up into sects, thou hast no part in them in the least. Their affair is with Allah. He will in the end tell them the truth of all that they did.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 160, for the Tafsir.
He that doth good shall have 10 times as much to his credit. He that doth evil shall only be recompensed according to his evil. No wrong shall be done unto any of them.
Adherence to religion requires that the individual should not give a higher status to anyone in his life than God. He should build relations on the basis of recognition of the truth and not on the basis of self-interest, and the first symbol of that is the proper treatment of parents. He should consider the provision made by God as a divine gift, and should not meddle with his system. In this connection, a man's misguidance leads him into the foolishness of the killing of children. He should be shown deeds of shamelessness so that his heart's sensitivity to evil remains alive. He should not exploit the weak. The acid test of this is how he treats an orphan. In the discharge of duties and in matters of give and take, he should strike a just balance. He should always speak with justice. He should spend his life with the feeling that he is bound by a divine pledge, and that he is never free of its responsibilities. This is the straightforward way for a man to spend his life, one which is liked by God. Man should keep himself on the straight path without deviating to the right or left. The 10 Commandments mentioned above, verses 151-153, are simple and natural. Every man's mind testifies to their truth. If stress is laid on these things, there can never be differences or sectarianism. But when communities decline, such leaders are born among them as willfully misinterpret these straightforward precepts, and this is what fragments religious unity. If unnecessary discussions are introduced into the faith of monotheism, e.g. whether God has a body or is bodiless, if there is hair-splitting on the subject of orphans, i.e., what is the definition of orphanhood, if the point is raised that divine commands cannot be carried out unless the government is overthrown, and as such the first task is changing the un-Islamic government, there will be no end to the difficulties created, and it will be impossible to achieve a general consensus on these points. Then different schools of thought will form, separate sects will take shape, long-established unity will turn into internal discord. To devote one's full attention to this simple and natural religion is the best act of righteousness. But for this purpose, a man has to fight with his self. Even if the atmosphere is unpropitious, one has to remain firm by exercising patience and making sacrifices. This is an arduous task, and that is why the reward for it is multiplied many times over by God. Those who practice evil, those who adopt paths other than that specified by God, indulge in the worst type of crime. However, God does not take excessive measures against them. He gives them a punishment commensurate with their crime.
Say, verily, my Lord hath guided me to a way that is straight, a religion of right, the path trod by Abraham the true in faith, and he certainly joined not gods with Allah.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 162 for the Tafsir.
Say, truly, my prayer and my service of sacrifice, my life and my death, are all for Allah, the cherisher of the worlds.
In the pages of the Quran, God has revealed his religion in the uncorrupted state in which he had given it to Abraham and other prophets. Now, one who wants to be blessed by the grace of God and his support should adopt this religion. He should dedicate his prayers to God. He should have a relation with God at the level of sacrifice. If he lives, he should live for the sake of God, and when he is overtaken by death, he should by that time have unreservedly become a subject of God, in body and soul. The vast universe with its heavenly bodies follows this religion of obedience to God. Then, how can a man adopt a path other than this? In the world of obedience to God, how can arrogance directed against God lead to success? This is a matter which concerns every individual. Nobody can share another's reward or suffer another's punishment. The individual should be as serious about this as he is about all matters which concern him personally.
No partner hath he, this am I commanded, and I am the first of those who bow to his will.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 165 for the Tafsir.
Say, shall I seek for my cherisher other than Allah, when he is the cherisher of all things that exist? Every soul draws the meat of its acts on none but itself. No bearer of burdens can bear the burden of another. Your goal in the end is towards Allah. He will tell you the truth of the things wherein ye disputed.
See Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 165 for the Tafsir.
It is he who hath made you his agents, inheritors of the earth. He hath raised you in ranks, some above others, that he may try you in the gifts he hath given you, for thy Lord is quick in punishment, yet he is indeed oft forgiving, most merciful.
The system of this world is that one person goes away, and another takes his place. One community is thrust aside, and another community takes its place and captures the resources of the land. These incidents remind us again and again that here nobody's dominance is permanent, but man's behavior is strange. When he sees some opportunity to advance himself, he forgets the fate of his forebears. He fabricates different types of arguments to justify oppression and arrogance. But when God lays bare the realities, man will see that his actions, which he had considered strong enough to justify his position, were meaningless. The reason for man's arrogance in this world is that he thinks of the good things of this life as God's reward. The fact is that whatever a man receives in this life is meant to be a test and not a reward. If a man considers the good things available to him in this life as his due, this will cause him to be proud, but if he considers them as a means of testing him, this will develop a sense of humility in him. While a proud mentality is marked by haughtiness, a humble attitude is marked by the willingness to obey God.